As a horrified customer runs for his life, Gail tries to sell his custom-built sorcerer's sword, much to Mora's dismay. When he playfully offers her the cursed sword, she furiously rejects it, insisting he has to draw the line somewhere. She scolds him for setting up his morbid stall at dawn, right next to vendors selling breakfast. He cluelessly defends his strategy by quoting the guild, leading her to question his basic grasp of supply and demand. He gives a painfully simple definition of the concept, so she reminds him to tailor his products to a farming community. His attempt to adjust involves brainstorming more morbid items, from poisoned talismans to cursed daggers. Having reached her limit, Mora begins dragging him away as onlookers note his wares are too disgusting to even be stolen. Their argument leads them back to the guild, where the elf master listens with a look of utter exasperation. Mora complains to the guild master that he's too much to handle, while Gail coolly denies she's his partner. He ignores them, instead hugging his new sword and complaining that Mora can't appreciate his 3 days of hard work. The guild master joins the lecture, telling Gail he needs to consider other people's feelings. She questions who in a farming town would ever buy his morbid creations. Gail cluelessly suggests his cursed gear could be used as interior decoration, much to the guild master's amusement. The guild master then questions his baffling choice of location for the stall. Mora furiously explains that selling cursed items next to food vendors is a surefire way to get in trouble. As the guildmaster teases them about being partners, they both shout in perfect sync that they're not. When asked how much he paid for the spot, Gail reveals it cost him a whole gold coin. Mora is floored by the exorbitant price, and Gail realizes he was completely scammed by the Merchants Guild. It finally dawns on him that the local farmers have no use for his cursed inventory. He desperately argues that the local adventurers might still be interested, an idea Mora finds completely insane. The guildmaster tells a dejected Gail he needs to relocate, but he claims the better districts are already full. She and Mora both know that's a lie, as they saw plenty of empty space on their way over. The guildmaster explains that Farm Edge is big enough for major guilds to have branches, and Mora starts to see the bigger picture. With a confident smile, the guildmaster decides to take them on a little field trip. They arrive at the imposing Smith's Guild, leaving a confused Gail wondering why they're there. The constant clang of hammers from inside hints at the immense power and activity within the guild. Gail naively hopes this visit is just about getting him a better spot for his stall. Surrounded by busy blacksmiths, he finally asks why they aren't at the Merchants Guild to sort this out. The guildmaster reveals that in Farmage, the Merchants Guild is weak, and the Smiths Guild holds all the real power. As Mora quickly connects the dots, the guildmaster tells Gail it's time to introduce himself to the people who truly run the town. Mora explains that the Smiths Guild's power comes from supplying the town with essential metal tools. The guildmaster asks if Gail brought a suitable gift, but he's only focused on getting a better stall location. He confidently presents his idea of a perfect gift, a cursed skull necklace and his terrifying new sword. Gail unleashes the sword's dark power, certain the Smith's Guild leader will be impressed by his morbid masterpiece. Mora immediately smacks him, finally understanding why the guildmaster insisted they buy normal gifts first. She takes the presents from him, insisting he just focus on being polite, but he's sure a smith will love his work. The guildmaster pulls back a heavy curtain, preparing to introduce them to the heart of the guild. They enter a vast, roaring forge, a massive workshop filled with the clang of hammers and the heat of the furnace. Dozens of blacksmiths are hard at work, hammering metal and inspecting designs with intense focus. As Mora complains about the heat, the guildmaster clarifies this isn't a typical guild, but a dedicated forge for its members. The guildmaster suggests a bold entrance, and Gail agrees that shouting is the best way to get the boss's attention. As a smith works nearby, the guildmaster clears her throat, while Mora and Gail look on with apprehension. The guildmaster criticizes Mora's quiet attempt to get attention and prepares to demonstrate the proper way to be heard. She unleashes a deafening shout that echoes through the forge, stunning both Gail and Mora with its sheer power. Landing with explosive force, she shatters a massive anvil, sending Gail and Mora scrambling for cover. An annoyed figure emerges from the back of the forge, demanding quiet and complaining about the repeated disturbances. The newcomer, a sharp-tongued young woman, scolds them for their excessive noise, calling them idiots. Both Gail and Mora stare in disbelief, shocked to discover the formidable guild leader is a female dwarf. The dwarf greets the guildmaster by name, teasingly pointing out that she's the dark elf from the forest. As the guildmaster and the dwarf bicker, Gail begins to doubt their plan, realizing the animosity between their races might complicate things. The elf guildmaster trades insults with the dwarf Shireena, who then turns her attention to Gail. Gail ignores the banter, intently studying Shireena's hands and recognizing the marks of a master smith. The dwarf guildmaster closes the distance, getting right in Gail's face as a worried Mora looks on. Shireena and Gail lock eyes, a silent understanding passing between the two dedicated crafters. A firm handshake seals their mutual respect, acknowledging each other as true seasoned artisans. The elf guildmaster interrupts their moment, teasingly questioning their intense shared gaze. A flustered Gail and Mora deny everything, while the smirking guildmaster decides it's time to get back to business. The elf guildmaster explains Gail wants to open a stall, but Shireena scoffs, dismissing his simple request. She turns away in frustration, complaining about a massive material shortage that's consuming all her time. Shireena concedes his visit is proper, but warns that setting up a stall will cause trouble with the Merchants Guild. The dwarf explains that by focusing on repairs, her guild slowly became the town's unofficial authority. She warns Gail not to trust the elf guildmaster, then sits down to confirm his name and get to business. As Shireena agrees to help, a relieved Mora celebrates while the elf guildmaster makes a sarcastic remark. Shireena winks, warning them not to celebrate too soon, as Mora and Gail high-five in premature victory. The dwarf guildmaster clarifies that this is a transaction, demanding to see some sincerity in return for her help. Mora presents a bottle of fine liquor as a gift, which Gail finally understands is the sincerity she's offering. As Mora gives Shireena the liquor, a nervous Gail decides to present his own gift, much to Mora's horror. Mora slaps him and drags him back, insisting he can't give the dwarf his cursed sword, but he's sure she'll love it. Shireena watches the chaos unfold, dryly commenting on Mora's tendency to slap people. Before a dazed Gail can react, Shireena suddenly appears and snatches the cursed sword right out of his hands. Shireena holds the sword aloft, her voice echoing through the forge as she questions its incredible nature. While Mora and the elf guildmaster recover from the shock, Shireena marvels at the sword's amazing craftsmanship. With the intense gaze of a master smith, she confirms she can recognize its true quality. She declares that the weapon is far from ordinary, its presence commanding the entire forge. A stunned Gail falls to his knees, moved that someone finally appreciates his unique talent. The two crafters instantly bond, excitedly celebrating the sword's beautiful and deadly design. Overcome with emotion, Gail is moved to tears, having finally found a kindred spirit in Shireena. As Gail weeps with joy, the elf guildmaster watches their sudden friendship with a curious expression. Mora and Shireena exchange a silent, knowing glance, the dwarf guildmaster clearly enjoying the situation. The elf guildmaster playfully teases a flustered Mora about her obvious jealousy, before clearing her throat to interrupt. The elf guildmaster teases them about their closeness, suggesting Mora can wait outside if the forge is too dusty. Gail excitedly tells Shireena he knew a true forger would appreciate the quality of his work. Shireena inspects the sword, listing its incredible enchantments like lifesteal and dark element, amazed by its monster drop origin. She easily swings the blade, correctly guessing it has a weight reduction spell, while Gail hints there are even more secrets. As Shireena tests the weapon, a worried Mora is told that any true artisan would want a hands-on feel. The dwarf guildmaster grins, confirming she couldn't possibly resist giving such a fine weapon a few test swings. She describes its life-draining ability, which allows the user to absorb an enemy's vitality to restore their own stamina. Shireena praises its perfect balance, noting it's a great sword light enough to be wielded with a single hand. She declares it the ultimate weapon for a solo adventurer, capable of sustaining them through marathon battles. Gail proudly adds that it's also dustproof and magically resistant, but most importantly, it's incredibly cool and cursed. As Shireena praises the sword's many features, Gail grabs her, demanding to know what she heard last. Mora scolds him for his morbid taste, but Gail is only concerned with how cool his creation is. Suddenly, the curse activates, and dark tendrils from the sword begin to envelop Shireena's arm. The dwarf guildmaster struggles to free her hand, furiously questioning Gail's terrible design sense. While Mora panics, Shireena completely retracts her praise, now terrified of the cursed weapon. The elf guildmaster finds the chaos hilarious, noting Shireena still praised the sword's many other effects. After Gail dispels the curse, he wonders if his unique skills will ever be truly accepted. The elf guildmaster shakes her head, silently amused by the crafter's chaotic introduction. He tries to offer the sword back, but a traumatized Shireena recoils in absolute horror. Exhausted from the ordeal, Shireena sits at her desk, sighing that the entire situation is a disaster. Shireena frantically disinfects her hand, disgusted by the cursed sword's lingering touch. She furiously lectures Gail for not warning her about the curse, while he cluelessly defends his ability to dispel it. The Elf Guildmaster tries to mediate, but Shireena complains that Gail and his chaotic energy are too much to handle. Shireena regrets being tempted by the sword's features and flatly denies his request to open a stall. The Dwarf Guildmaster glares, stating that if it weren't for their kindness, she'd be calling the guards on them. Mora furiously lectures him on basic customer needs as Shireena vows to never let him open a stall in her town. She imagines the entire town being overrun by his morbid creations, terrified of the chaos he would unleash. Having a change of heart, Shireena decides she can't just let a killer shark like him run wild and unsupervised. As Mora nudges him, a smug Gail confirms his unwavering desire to open a stall. Mora desperately vouches for him, while a humbled Gail bows, begging the Dwarf Guildmaster for a chance. Seeing his desperation, Shireena agrees to consider his request, but questions why he needs her help at all. She warns him that her official endorsement comes with great responsibility, a condition he readily accepts. With a sly grin, the Dwarf Guildmaster declares she needs more than just promises and intends to test his character. She reveals she has a favor to ask, and a nervous Mora immediately assumes it's about money. Shireena cryptically asks them to guess what kind of task she would give to a pair of adventurers. Her true price is revealed. She wants to send them on a monster hunting quest to the only mine near Farm Edge. She warns them this is no ordinary mission, as every adventurer who has entered the mine has vanished without a trace. The job is to secure the dangerous Doghowl Mine, a high-stakes AA rank quest. With a challenging grin, she formally offers them the perilous quest, leaving Gail and Mora to weigh the risks. The scene pans out to show the sprawling city of Farm Edge, the stage for their next big challenge. Back in the capital, Princess Cara is shocked to learn the attack on her life was more than just a random act of violence. Her guard confirms with a sinister grin that the assassins confessed, revealing the Empire was indeed behind the plot. The guard explains the attempt on her life is directly tied to a succession crisis within the powerful Empire. Princess Cara is stunned to hear the assassins were hired by the Empire's own crown prince. An advisor elaborates on the political turmoil, revealing the Emperor is ill and his two sons are vying for the throne. The guard reminds the princess of her strategic arranged marriage to the second prince, a detail she had conveniently forgotten. She cheekily tries to dismiss the engagement, much to the exasperation of her weary chamberlain. He sternly reminds her that this is a pact between nations, and her personal feelings are irrelevant. The guard concludes the attackers were allies of the crown prince, trying to stop the second prince from gaining power. Staring out the window, the princess finally understands her marriage is a political move that threatens the crown prince's ambitions. The advisor explains that the crown prince would actually welcome the diplomatic fallout from the attack. Her guard predicts the second prince will visit to smooth things over, a move to strengthen his own position. But she also warns that another assassination attempt is likely, as there's no proof tying the crown prince to the first one. The chamberlain confirms their kingdom can't retaliate without hard evidence, as they are not prepared for war. Frustrated by her powerlessness, the princess slams her hand on the table. She defiantly declares she's calling off the engagement, refusing to marry into the Empire's political turmoil. The princess and her guard exchange a look, both understanding the gravity of her decision. The guard sighs in exasperation as the princess throws a tantrum, hiding under her bed to avoid her responsibilities. Under her bed, she clutches the cursed ring, muttering that she already has the only ring she wants. The scene shifts back to Farm Edge, where Gail and Mora arrive at the ominous entrance to the Doghowl Mine. The Elf Guildmaster cheerfully excludes herself, as Mora and Gail introduce their respective roles as support mage and curse crafter. Shireena explains there are no other parties available, which is why this dangerous quest has become a cold case. She admits the quest should be a lower rank, but pressures them to take it since they're already there. The Elf Guildmaster teases Shireena, who furiously denies being the bad guy for the quest's inflated difficulty. Mora finally understands that the quest's rank escalated to AA simply because no one could complete it. As the Elf Guildmaster jokes about it reaching S rank, Gail wonders if their failure would make it even higher. The Elf Guildmaster's tone turns serious as she admits that many adventurers have recently gone missing. Gail points to a strange, icy blockage at the mine's entrance, guessing it's the source of the trouble. Mora tries to dismiss an eerie sound as just the wind, but Gail is certain that powerful monsters lurk within. As they both shiver in fear, the elf guildmaster scolds them for already getting scared. Shireena pressures them to take the quest, explaining her guild's reliance on the mine's resources. Gail questions the mission's safety, while Mora is shocked by the meager reward for such a deadly job. Mora refuses to enter without a proper frontline fighter, realizing why no local adventurers will touch the quest. Shireena scoffs at their hesitation, but even Gail admits he's terrified of facing an unknown enemy. With a confident grin, Shireena volunteers to be their frontline fighter, hoisting her massive hammer. The dwarf guildmaster's offer leaves Gail and Mora stunned, while the elf guildmaster smirks knowingly. Gail and Mora exchange a worried glance, finding it highly unusual for a client to join the front lines. The elf guildmaster cheerfully dismisses their concerns, assuring them it's not against any guild rules. Shireena flexes her impressive muscles, proving to a skeptical Mora that she has the power to back up her claim. Despite Shireena's confidence, Mora still questions if a guildmaster can truly handle a party's front line. The elf guildmaster watches them leave, noting their unbalanced party but seeing their potential. Mora admits to herself that with Gail's strange curses, they might actually stand a chance. The new party rallies, eager to finish the quest so Gail can finally get his stall. As they venture into the dark mine, the elf guildmaster cheerfully waves them off. Inside, they discover a massive, deep shaft with rickety wooden platforms and a crank-operated lift. A strange sound echoes through the mine, startling Mora, but Shireena confidently calls it her backyard. She explains the howling is just wind passing through ventilation shafts, which gave the mine its name. To demonstrate the mine's value, Shireena casually tosses Gail a chunk of iron ore. She points out the walls are also rich with lead and even the rare and valuable mithril. Shireena proudly gestures to the vast cavern, inviting them to admire her impressive mine. The party gazes up at the breathtaking, crystal-studded walls of the massive mine shaft. Shireena proudly reveals this mineral-rich mountain is the entire reason her guild exists in Farm Edge. She asks them to relax, explaining the mine's personal importance, and a sheepish Mora finally understands. Mora bumps into something, then reassures herself that with no undead, there's nothing to fear. Her relief shatters as she turns to see a terrifying, eyeless figure looming right behind her. She frantically points out the undead monster, but Shireena and a confused Gail see nothing. As the figure speaks, Gail gets excited at the prospect of a rare undead, much to Mora's disbelief. Gail realizes it's just a statue, and the figure itself comments on its own detailed stone craftsmanship. Both Gail and Shireena geek out over the statue's artistry, leaving Mora to sigh at the two crafting idiots. Fed up with their antics, Mora decides to scout ahead, cautiously approaching a wooden doorway. Mora tries to interrupt, but the two crafters are too busy admiring the stonework to notice her. Frustrated, she grabs them both, declaring it's no time for nerd talk and dragging them forward. Beyond the door, they discover a massive cavern filled with a silent army of adventurer statues. The statues are frozen in poses of shock and terror, their last moments captured in stone. Mora senses deep trouble, while Gail observes that each statue is uniquely crafted and detailed. Shireena's expression turns grim as she recognizes the face of one of the petrified adventurers. A confused Gail asks how she could possibly know the model, but the dwarf guildmaster is certain. She begins pointing out familiar faces in the crowd, identifying them as missing adventurers from Farmage. The horrifying realization dawns on them as a piece of stone crumbles away. These aren't statues at all. They stare at the silent crowd, understanding these are the petrified bodies of every adventurer who vanished in the mine. Mora expresses her disgust, finally understanding why the statues looked so horribly detailed. A terrified Mora questions how all these adventurers could have been turned to stone. Gail grabs her, yelling that a powerful monster is clearly responsible for this. The entire party looks around in fear, the grim reality of the mine's curse finally sinking in. Shireena rallies the group, warning them to stay on high alert as they prepare for battle. A nervous Mora volunteers to scout the exit, peering into a dark, ominous doorway. Taking command, she orders Gail and Shireena to cover the front and sides of their formation. Gail speculates that only a high-rank monster like a basilisk or gorgon could have done this. He pieces together the clues, a strange smell, large feathers, and the petrification, to identify their foe. A massive, terrifying bird-like creature emerges, confirming their worst fears. They're facing a cockatrice. A low rumble shakes the cavern as a massive weight shifts nearby, dislodging small stones. The cockatrice bursts through a wall with explosive force, catching Mora completely off guard. Gail quickly identifies the disaster-class monster, noting its deadly arsenal and intelligent rear attack strategy. He shouts a warning to Mora, instantly switching places with her to face the threat head-on. As the creature lets out a piercing shriek, Gail charges forward with fierce determination. The curse crafter readies his counterattack, his gaze locked on the advancing monster. He leaps into the air, expertly landing a cursed dart in the cockatrice's serpentine tail. A confident smirk appears on Gale's face as he notes the monster's lunge made it an easy target. Mora and Shireena watch in disbelief, confused how his small dart pierced its thick hide and why the paralysis failed. Gale reveals the dart is cursed with a stun and armor-piercing effect, yelling for Shireena to attack now. Knowing the stun is temporary, Shireena charges forward to press the attack. She whirls her massive hammer with incredible force, preparing for a devastating blow. Leaping into the air, she unleashes a rapid-fire series of strikes directly on the monster's head. Shireena lands confidently, boasting about her mid-air combo as Mora and Gale stare in amazement. As the monster's snake tail lunges from below, Mora quickly casts a buffing spell on Shireena. The dwarf guildmaster feels a massive surge of power as the magic courses through her muscles. Mora warns that her muscle-enhancing spell is powerful, but designed to be short-lived. Unfazed by the warning, Shireena uses her newfound strength to catch the snake's jaws mid-lunge. With a look of fierce determination, she struggles to pry the monster's mouth open. Vowing to show them the true power of a first-class smith, she rips the creature's head apart with her bare hands. The monster's snake-like tail collapses as Shireena lands, steam rising from her body after the immense exertion. She slumps to the ground, exhausted but grinning with satisfaction as she claims the victory for herself. Mora expresses her relief, admitting they were lucky the cockatrice was slowed by Gale's still active dart. She then confronts Gale, demanding to know how his cursed dart managed to stun and pierce the armor of a boss-level monster. Gale seems genuinely confused by her shock, insisting it's normal for a single-use debuff to work on such a powerful creature. He explains he simply enhanced the dart with a talisman made from the ashes of a ghost he found in the capital. Both Mora and Shireena are completely baffled, questioning how a ghost could have an armor-piercing ability. Gale struggles to recall the specifics, vaguely describing a skeleton wearing a black cloak. He suddenly remembers a creepy lantern, prompting a nervous Mora to ask if the creature also carried a scythe. As Gale describes a massive skeleton that phases through walls, his companions yell in terror, realizing he fought a Grim Reaper. His companions are horrified, picturing the disaster-class Grim Reaper he casually fought, a creature considered a literal demigod. Gale nonchalantly dismisses their fear, admitting he was only startled when it phased through a crypt wall. A furious Mora grabs and shakes him, demanding to know how he managed to attract such a powerful entity. He cheerfully explains that he simply dispelled the demigod and repurposed its essence into cursed gear. The two women finally understand that an item forged from a god-tier monster would naturally overwhelm a simple boss. Gale then lectures a shivering Shireena, quoting an adventurer's credo about the price of a single unguarded moment. Mora defends the dwarf, arguing that anyone would have been shaken after such a close brush with death. The party turns their attention to the defeated cockatrice, confirming the immediate danger has passed. Gale and his companions begin to process the full implications of what they've just accomplished. The trio shares a triumphant smile, realizing they have successfully cleared the AA quest and secured the mine. The triumphant trio leaps into the air, celebrating the successful completion of their dangerous quest. As Gale plucks feathers from the fallen beast, he confirms with Shireena that the mine is finally usable again. He reflects on his new status as an adventurer, feeling a sense of accomplishment after their hard-fought victory. Mora eyes the creature's comb as proof of their kill, then morbidly wonders if any part of it is edible. A disgusted Shireena immediately shoots down the idea, reminding them the monster is completely saturated with poison. Unfazed, Gale compares its appearance to chicken, prompting a surprisingly eager Mora to ask for a slice. The party ponders why such a large creature would choose to nest in the relatively small confines of the mine. Gale sniffs the air, identifying the foul stench of a chicken coop and rotten eggs, confirming the monster's presence. Mora suddenly steps on something fragile, the cracking sound catching everyone's attention. Kneeling down, Gale discovers the shattered remains of a massive eggshell, deepening the mystery of the mine. Mora notes the eggshell is unusually large, while a thoughtful Gale covers his mouth. Gale cluelessly asks about the purpose of a chicken coop, earning confused looks from his companions. As Mora explains they're for laying eggs, a horrified Shireena connects the dots. Panic erupts as the two women realize the terrifying implication of their discovery. A tiny, newly hatched cockatrice peeps up at a terrified Shireena. The cavern floor cracks open as a whole brood of baby monsters emerges from their eggs. The party finds themselves surrounded by the hungry chicks, realizing they've stumbled into a nesting ground. As his companions scream at him to run, Gail realizes the chicks will imprint on the first thing they see. The flock of baby cockatrices begins to cry in unison, their tiny beaks wide open. With a mischievous grin, Gail snags Mora's cloak, getting a brilliant, terrible idea. As his companions flee in terror, Gail doubts the chicks are truly dangerous, but Mora insists they're out for blood. The entire party sprints through the mine, desperately trying to outrun the relentless flock of hungry monsters. Their escape is cut short by a massive metal gate, trapping them at a dead end in a sealed-off section of the mine. Shireena takes charge, ordering the others to cover her as she prepares to smash a new path forward. The horde of baby monsters closes in, their beaks open and ready to strike at the cornered party. Using a chick as a springboard, Shireena leaps into the air, poising her hammer for a powerful blow against the gate. She unleashes a mighty swing, confidently declaring her hammer is strong enough to shatter the stone barrier. While Shireena works, Mora notices the chicks are ignoring the dwarf, realizing they're in even bigger trouble than before. A size comparison reveals that even a baby cockatrice towers over an average person, and they're facing over 100 of them. The party speculates that the creature's snake-like half may be responsible for its unnaturally high rate of reproduction. Mora realizes these hungry chicks are too mindless to be intimidated, unlike their more strategic mother. Shireena smashes a few, but learns the babies lack any sense of self-preservation and just keep attacking. As the dwarf desperately holds the line against the endless horde, Mora prepares a complex magic circle on the ground. Mora unleashes a powerful combination of spells, enveloping Shireena in a surge of magical energy. She explains this new buff will grow continuously, but worries the power isn't rising fast enough to keep up. After boosting Shireena's agility and power, the dwarf leaps into the air, ready to test her newfound strength. Empowered by Mora's magic, Shireena becomes a tornado of destruction, pulverizing the baby monsters in her path. Even with her enhanced speed and strength, the sheer number of chicks begins to overwhelm the seemingly invincible dwarf. Panting and surrounded, Shireena admits that both her stamina and her sanity are about to break. A desperate Mora turns to a drained Gail, asking if he has a curse to deal with the horde, just as he did with the orcs. Gail explains his spirit-based curses are useless against the mindless chicks, as he's also run out of them. He uses a strange analogy, comparing his curses to showing a lemon to trigger a natural reaction. He clarifies that his fear-based curses require a target with enough intelligence to understand the threat. A horrified Mora realizes that, unlike their previous fights, Gail's signature curses are completely useless here. The horde of hungry chicks continues to cry out, signaling the start of a new, desperate chapter in their fight. As the party clings desperately to the gate, a weary Shireena realizes their situation is dire. Mora desperately asks if he has any curses he can use on himself to turn the tide. Rummaging through his bag, Gail mentions he has a few decorative items he was planning to sell. He pulls out his first potential solution, a tattered, cursed bandana. His second option is an even more ominous-looking plague doctor mask, radiating dark energy. His third option is a set of cursed horns called the Horns of Lamentation. Gail admits his pride in their design, but claims they're mostly decorative, causing his companions to slump in defeat. He then lists their minor effects, triple defense, double agility, and poison resistance, leaving Shireena and Mora stunned. Realizing these buffs are their only hope, Mora prepares to cast a barrier while Shireena gets ready to equip the items. An exhausted Shireena grabs Gail, demanding the gear, while he tries to downplay its combat effectiveness. She recoils in disgust at the bandana's grotesque texture, but the dire situation leaves her no choice. Gail ties the cursed bandana around her head, explaining its powerful defensive and anti-fatigue properties. Shireena is amazed as she feels her exhaustion completely disappear, a dark aura now surrounding her. He then offers her the Plague Doctor mask, which grants poison immunity and night vision. Wearing the mask, Shireena is shocked to see countless more chicks swarming deeper in the mine, a fact that only exasperates Mora. Mora's barrier begins to crack under the relentless assault of the chicks, and she urges Gail to hurry with the remaining gear. He presents the final piece, the Horns of Lamentation, explaining it grants double agility and a 5-fold increase in arm strength. Fully equipped, Shireena stands transformed by the complete set of cursed gear, radiating a powerful and ominous aura. While Shireena questions the impossible power boost, a disgusted Mora can only stare as Gail proudly admires his handiwork. Dark energy envelops Shireena's hand as she feels the overwhelming power coursing through her entire body. Just in time, the magical barrier shatters, and the horde of hungry chicks floods through the opening. Mora shouts a warning as the relentless flock swarms around the newly empowered and unfazed Shireena. Through the mask's dark lenses, Shireena's eyes gleam with focus, ready to unleash her newfound power. She winds up for a devastating swing, her hammer now a blur of motion and immense force. With a single explosive spin, she unleashes a shockwave so powerful it cracks the cavern walls, leaving Mora to realize her own buffs are no longer needed. Overwhelmed by the cursed gear, Shireena marvels at her own unbelievable, invincible power. She unleashes a relentless flurry of swings, spontaneously creating a devastating new combat skill. Both Shireena and Mora erupt into wild, unhinged laughter, caught up in the chaotic energy of the battle. Mora questions if the gear is affecting Shireena's mind, but Gail suspects it's a powerful combined effect. He explains that when compatible cursed items are worn together, their effects amplify each other dramatically. Mora realizes the dwarf is experiencing a euphoric rush far beyond a simple anti-fatigue spell. With one final, triumphant smash, the empowered Shireena obliterates the very last of the monster chicks. The battle ends, and the dwarf stands silently, the manic energy of the cursed gear beginning to fade. A strange, dark substance begins to melt off the cursed equipment, pooling on the cavern floor. After removing the gear, Gail dispels its lingering power, much to the relief of his exhausted companions. Shireena lies on the ground mortified, clarifying she only praised the gear's features, not its cursed nature. As she stumbles, she tries to claim the gear is now more valuable, but Gail can only see how worn out it is. The dwarf collapses as the full weight of her exhaustion hits, and Gail explains the curse only delayed the inevitable crash. He details the brutal backlash, explaining her body is now paying the price for the incredible power boost she just experienced. Mora comforts the dwarf, noting that few adventurers are brave or foolish enough to rely on cursed equipment. Gail eyes the pile of defeated monsters, realizing the true, terrifying potential and value of his creations. A faint crackle from one of the fallen chicks hints that their troubles might not be completely over. Completely drained, Shireena lies sprawled on the cavern floor, too exhausted to move a muscle. Mora playfully teases the defeated dwarf, who admits she's too tired to even feel embarrassed anymore. The entire party sits in exhausted silence, realizing they've all pushed their limits and need time to recover. Shireena, though exhausted, declares with certainty that this time, the threat is truly gone. Gail and Mora reflect on their victory, believing the dangerous AA quest is finally over. The exhausted but triumphant trio celebrates, officially declaring the Doghowl mine safe. They share a laugh, admitting they would have never taken the job if they'd known the full danger. But Gail's celebration is cut short as a sudden dawning realization hits him. The words cockatrice nest echo in his mind, carrying a terrifying new implication. The party looks up at a wall of massive eggs and Mora is overcome with a terrible feeling. A heavy footstep shakes the cavern, reminding Mora of the unease she felt when they first found the eggshells. A monstrous, bird-like creature emerges from the eggs, far larger than anything they faced before. The true queen of the nest towers over them, revealing the party has just cleared the nursery, not the main threat. The party is blown back as they realize the first monster was the hen, and they've just met her enraged rooster. As Shireena points out the new monster's immense size, Gail realizes they were facing a mated pair all along. The exhausted party scrambles to avoid the monster's powerful swings, dreading the start of a third, even deadlier round. The enraged creature swats Shireena aside, but Gail catches her, trying to snap her out of her exhaustion. Mora shouts a desperate reminder that the monster won't show mercy just because they're exhausted. The monster's fury intensifies, having returned with food only to find its entire family wiped out. The creature lets out a piercing cry, its rage boiling over as it prepares to avenge its family. A defiant Shireena rises, declaring the mine is her guild's territory and no place for a monster like it. The enraged cockatrice retaliates by spewing a massive cloud of petrifying mist toward them. As Mora shouts a warning, Gail shudders with a terrible premonition about the approaching mist. Gail desperately shouts a warning as a defiant Shireena stands her ground against the monster. He tackles the dwarf to the ground, narrowly avoiding the cloud of petrifying mist. A stunned Shireena looks on as Gail confirms his worst fears about the monster's power. He points to a fallen chick, which instantly turns to stone upon contact with the deadly vapor. They watch in horror as everything the mist touches, including the mine itself, turns to solid rock. The enraged cockatrice puffs out its chest, preparing to unleash another deadly wave. As a second wave of mist erupts, Mora can only watch in terror, paralyzed by fear. Mora quickly analyzes the attack, noting its short range and the long delay between breaths. However, she realizes this advantage is useless, as they're trapped in a dead-end cavern with no escape. Knowing they're cornered, she urges herself to find a solution, while Gail and Shireena distract the beast. Gail and Shireena make a frantic U-turn, sprinting back toward Mora with the enraged monster hot on their heels. A panicked Mora shouts, realizing her friends are leading the disaster-class threat right to her. The party is herded like sheep, confirming they've been completely cornered by the relentless creature. With a furious hiss, the massive cockatrice brings its foot down in a devastating stomp. The ground shatters on impact, sending the entire party flying through the air amidst the debris. As Gail helps a dazed Mora to her feet, the monster lets out a low, menacing growl. Mora assesses the damage, realizing Shireena's hammer is lost and they have absolutely no cover left. Just as all hope seems lost, Gail calmly announces that he has a shield they can use. A confused Shireena wonders what he could possibly mean, as the monster glares down at them. With grim determination, Shireena steps forward, spreading her arms to become a human shield for her friends. Shireena orders her friends to take cover behind her, insisting they can hold out against the monster. A shocked Gail argues against her plan, reminding her of his own promise to be their front line. As the mist envelops her, she grimly tells Gail that the responsibility now falls to him. Her friends can only watch in horror as her body begins to crack, turning to solid stone. With her last moments, she admits that despite his strange ways, she has grown fond of him. A tearful Mora pleads with her to hold on, but the dwarf's only concern is for her friends to survive. Now completely petrified, she stands as a monument to her final, selfless request. Her final thoughts drift to her guild, entrusting its care to those she's leaving behind. She even thinks of the elf guildmaster, regretting she never offered a final, grudging compliment. Suddenly, a powerful dispel magic flashes over the cavern, and the petrification on Shireena's body begins to reverse. Gail checks on a dazed Shireena, whose arm hangs limply as she slowly recovers from the ordeal. He explains to his shocked friends that touching her mid-petrification gave him a hunch he could dispel it. His gamble paid off, leaving a stunned Mora and Shireena completely speechless at his bizarre ability. Mora realizes the monster's breath isn't poison but a petrification curse similar to a Gorgon's. Gail notes with satisfaction that his curse-breaking skills are effective against more than just undead and demons. Shireena directs their attention back to the massive cockatrice, which is showing signs of weakness. The monster is visibly exhausted from its powerful attack, its comb flopping as it struggles to recover. With the monster's ultimate weapon neutralized, Mora sees their chance to strike as Gail urges them to attack. Mora gathers her remaining energy to cast one final buff, and a determined Shireena readies herself for the boost. Mora lays out a new plan, ordering Gail to distract the snake tail while she empowers Shireena for the final blow. Mora shouts for Gail to use his cursed items as he and Shireena sprint into action. The monster's serpentine tail lunges forward with a vicious hiss, ready to strike. Empowered by Mora's spell, Shireena intercepts the snake, smashing it to the ground with her hammer. As Gail stands atop the stunned snake, Mora smirks, impressed by their successful pincer maneuver. Shireena gives Gail the signal to go all out as he dashes along the monster's back toward its head. The curse crafter sprints up the beast's massive body, closing in on his target. As the cockatrice turns its head, Gail greets the now alert monster, preparing for his assault. He unleashes his entire arsenal of curses, confident that at least one of the debilitating effects will land. With a wild grin, Gail activates a point-blank barrage, overwhelming the creature with a storm of cursed energy. The cockatrice reels back in agony as the curses detonate, sending Gail flying while his companions watch the explosive finale. Gail taunts the monster, having delivered his full payload of curses. The cockatrice is buried under a mountain of curses, manifesting as a chaotic swarm of spectral skulls. The sheer variety of curses becomes apparent, with haunted objects and ghostly apparitions overwhelming the beast. As Gail lands, a shocked Mora asks if he really unleashed his entire arsenal, which he casually confirms. He explains his kitchen sink approach, admitting he threw every curse he had at it, unsure which would stick. The spectral horde begins to glow, building with an ominous, unstable energy. A terrified Mora berates him for his recklessness, fearing his power could have catastrophic consequences, but he just laughs it off. She concedes she wanted him to go all out, but never imagined he would take it to such an extreme and dangerous level. A massive nexus of cursed energy forms above the monster, signaling an imminent catastrophic explosion. The collected curses detonate in a single devastating blast that engulfs the massive cockatrice. The force of the blast sends the entire party flying, with Mora furiously blaming Gail for his reckless power. In the aftermath, a dark, steaming liquid is all that remains of the once massive cockatrice. Shireena and Mora slowly recover, covered in grime but relieved to have survived the explosion. As Mora laments her ruined cloak, she spots Gail's unconscious body sprawled amongst the debris. Their brief moment of relief is shattered, as the entire cavern begins to shake violently. The two women exchange a look of dawning horror, realizing the mine itself is now collapsing. Jolted awake by the intense tremors, a disoriented Gail blinks, trying to understand the new danger. He panics at the thought of a cave-in, earning a sharp rebuke from his exhausted companions. With no time to argue, the party makes a frantic sprint toward the exit, hoping to escape the collapsing mine. Massive chunks of rock and stalactites begin to fall from the ceiling, threatening to crush them. The scene cuts between the party's desperate escape and the princess's chamberlain, who looks utterly horrified. The mine tunnel violently shakes and crumbles around them as they flee for their lives. With a final deafening rumble, the entire entrance to the Dog Howl mine collapses into a pile of rubble. Having narrowly escaped, an exhausted Gail and Mora sit on the ground, just thankful to be alive. Their relief is short-lived as Shireena delivers a sharp bonk to both of their heads. The furious dwarf guildmaster berates them for not just clearing the monsters, but destroying the entire mountain. Gail meekly argues that they still technically completed the quest, gesturing to the ruined mine. Mora cheekily chimes in, reminding a fuming Shireena that since the monsters are gone, they're owed their reward. An enraged Shireena leaps at them, insisting they're the ones who owe her for the damages. Gail desperately argues his case, reminding her of the immense risks they took and asking about his promised stall. Shireena furiously asks how she can possibly introduce him to merchants, now that he's known as the local mine wrecker. She clutches her head in despair, lamenting her lost hammer, the destroyed mine, and being forced to wear cursed armor. Standing before the ruins, she declares it the worst day of her life as her companions dismiss her complaints. The scene shifts to the capital, where the princess's chamberlain grabs a training post, completely exhausted. He coughs, admitting he thought he was a goner, and reflects on Gail's power being beyond anything he's ever seen. Elsewhere, the elf guildmaster sighs in relief, realizing Gail's destructive power is something even she couldn't evade. She decides that witnessing such overwhelming power is enough to call her debt to him settled, and she quickly departs. Gail has a moment of clarity, finally understanding that while he only makes cursed items, they all possess artifact-class features. The trio stands in weary silence, with Shireena fuming, Mora exhausted, and Gail looking quietly resolute. Sometime later, the Chamberlain addresses the party at the cleared mine entrance, kicking off a new chapter. The Chamberlain casts a powerful dispel, shattering the stone curse from a trapped adventurer. The freed adventurer has an emotional reunion with his worried partner, Penelope. As the elf guildmaster teases the couple, Mora resolves to rescue all the other petrified adventurers. The grateful man reveals he promised to marry Penelope if he survived, thanking the party for saving him. Seeing an opportunity, Gail offers the man a cursed pocket watch as a congratulatory gift. His companions furiously berate him for his inappropriate gift, but Gail just pivots to promoting his future stall. The happy couple embraces, unaware of the ominous aura now emanating from the cursed watch. The scene fades, leaving only the image of the ominous plague doctor mask. Back in Farm Edge, a bell rings, signaling the start of a new chapter in their chaotic journey. The elf guildmaster's cheerful welcome instantly fades as she realizes her visitor is a very grumpy-looking Shireena. Shireena takes a seat at the bar, dryly noting the guild's lack of customers, while the elf guildmaster asks if she's looking for a fight. The dwarf guildmaster places a single, unassuming dart on the countertop between them. The elf guildmaster questions the purpose of the dart, but Shireena simply tells her to examine it. After putting on a monocle for a closer look, the elf's expression shifts to one of pure shock, much to Shireena's satisfaction. Shireena reveals the dart is a genuine artifact, explaining that Gail is casually selling items of immense power. The elf guildmaster recalls hearing Gail was a simple wanderer, but Shireena counters with a rumor that he was in an S-rank party. The two guildmasters exchange a look, one smug and the other exasperated, as they ponder the mystery of the curse crafter. Shireena scoffs at the idea that such a powerful adventurer would just wander into their quiet town. She then changes the subject, confirming that all the adventurers who were petrified in the mine are now fully recovered. The elf guildmaster is stunned as Shireena reveals that Gail succeeded where even the most powerful priests had failed, breaking the curse. Shireena reveals she was even petrified by the monster, but Gail's power brought her back completely. She explains that while many were saved, some of the petrified adventurers didn't survive the ordeal. Now, all the survivors that Gail dispelled are recuperating in the town's only church infirmary. This has put the local church on high alert, as they have no idea how he performed such powerful miracles. The elf guildmaster's interest is piqued, and she presses a nervous Shireena for details on his dispelling abilities. The dwarf guildmaster leans in, asking if the elf is truly curious about his strange powers. Shireena recounts how Gail simply identified the petrification as a curse and instantly dispelled it for everyone. She adds that he accomplished this without any medicine or holy relics, leaving everyone baffled. The elf laughs, finding it impossible to believe he's just a simple wanderer after hearing of his incredible feats. Convinced of his value, she decides to file for his rank promotion, recognizing his immense contribution to the guild. The elf guildmaster and Shireena trade friendly jabs, acknowledging their long-standing rivalry. The elf guildmaster gets straight to the point, questioning Shireena's sudden interest in Gail. Shireena reveals she's recruited Gail into the Smith's Guild, praising his skills despite his questionable aesthetic. The elf guildmaster concedes that dual membership is allowed, much to Shireena's satisfaction. A smug Shireena savors her victory as the elf guildmaster tries and fails to hide her annoyance. Having made her point, Shireena unapologetically sends the elf guildmaster on her way. Meanwhile, back at the mine, Gail is suddenly overcome by a massive sneeze. Mora immediately scolds him for his poor manners, but he simply blames the mine's dusty air. As they work to clear the rubble, Mora observes that Shireena is a demanding boss. Mora playfully pinches Gail's cheek, calling him a cave-in-causing villain for his reckless use of power. Mora casually asks Gail about the rumor that he joined the Smith's Guild. He confirms it, showing her the new guild tag Shireena gave him in exchange for helping him set up his stall. She's stunned, explaining the Smith's Guild is incredibly exclusive and filled with master craftsmen. When asked about his duties, Gail nonchalantly reveals they've just given him a space to craft his cursed items. Mora doubts they've truly accepted him, but Gail just recalls Shireena's constant, annoying complaints about his work. He assumes she wants interior decor instead of weapons, so he's been focusing on making decorative items. He proudly reveals his latest masterpiece, a bleached skull repurposed as a flower vase, much to Mora's horror. She questions why it took him a whole day, but he boasts about the hours spent polishing it to a perfect sheen. He then reveals the vase provides constant magic recovery and high-speed healing, an item any mage would dream of owning. Gail is baffled by her shock, casually comparing its power to simply resting, which only makes Mora more exasperated. Mora explains that a mage's magic recovery is a delicate process, dependent on their diet and rest. She clenches her fist, realizing his cursed vase makes a difficult, time-consuming process completely trivial. The thought of using such a grotesque item horrifies her, and she recoils from the very idea. A weary Mora finally understands Shireena's constant frustration with Gail's bizarre creations. As Mora walks off to cool down, Gail cluelessly explains to a newly arrived Shireena that his prototype upset her. Shireena furiously berates him for making creepy junk instead of useful tools, threatening to banish him from town. She then drops a massive, cloth-wrapped bundle at his feet, revealing it's the head of the defeated cockatrice. The dwarf clarifies that he only handled the first monster, and she was the one who took down the final boss. A sly grin spreads across Shireena's face as she reminds a confused Gail that he still owes her a reward. Mora furiously intervenes, arguing a thank you should suffice, but Gail insists on the promised shop stall. Mora snaps at Gail, reminding him they're busy rebuilding the very mine he helped destroy. She interrupts their bickering, turning to Gail with something important to show him as he negotiates for a bigger shop. Mora leads him to a massive, cloth-covered object resting on a minecart, its true form hidden from view. With a dramatic flourish, she reveals the cockatrice's petrification organ, the source of its deadliest power. She confirms this is the very organ that produces the deadly stone-turning mist they faced earlier. Mora reminds him that he once identified the monster's power as a type of cursed item, which he quietly confirms. Gail recalls how the monster's breath felt like a Gorgon's curse, a theory proven when he dispelled it from the victims. Knowing his unique talents, Mora offers the priceless organ to him, suggesting he craft something with it. She insists he take the rare material, knowing he's the only one who can truly utilize its cursed properties. A nervous Gail finally accepts the offer, but with a single important condition of his own. Shireena interrupts, sensing an opportunity and declaring there's a better use for the organ than just giving it away. With a wicked grin, she announces her intention to give Gail a hands-on lesson in economics. She eagerly explains the concept of supply and demand, leaving a stunned Gail completely bewildered. The story shifts, revealing that the impact of Gail's cursed creations extends far beyond the town of Farmage. Deep within the heavily guarded vaults of the Emperor's palace, someone reacts with disbelief to a startling discovery. A shocked Prince Betrayal confronts the assassin leader, Liznet, who confirms his worst fears from the floor of the ransacked vault. The prince grabs her chin, expressing his disappointment and accusing her of lying about the situation. He furiously reminds the defeated assassin leader of his status as crown prince, questioning how she dared to deceive him. Calling her incompetent, he shoves her to the ground as she offers no defense for her failure. He drags her away, furiously recounting her empty promises and the utter failure of her supposedly elite assassins. A terrified Liznet is dragged into a dark room by the furious prince. He brings her to a desolate chamber containing a single foreboding chest. The prince opens the chest, revealing the Empire's most insidious cursed item, the heart of the devil. Liznet recoils from the sinister miasma, learning it contains the essence of a legendary demon king. He cruelly explains the pulsating heart feeds on life, and it's about to have its first decent meal in ages. The prince shoves the assassin leader toward the open chest, demanding to know if she understands her fate. As the cursed heart's energy surges, a terrified Liznet begs for her life. He mockingly calls the deadly chamber a perfect meeting spot as the miasma drains her will to live. The prince whispers that a single touch from the artifact would kill an average warrior instantly. As she pleads for mercy, her trembling hand is forced closer and closer to the deadly cursed heart. The prince relents, pulling the assassin leader up by her hair as she gasps for air. He crouches before the terrified woman, demanding she explain every detail of her failure. She recounts how the mission was proceeding perfectly until the final, climactic moment. The prince is stunned to hear that every assassination attempt was rendered useless against the princess. Enraged, he kicks a nearby bucket, refusing to believe a supposedly helpless target could thwart his elite assassins. He's horrified to learn the artifact granted the princess immunity to instant death attacks, among other powerful effects. The assassin leader insists that despite how unbelievable it sounds, her report is the absolute truth. A flashback confirms the complete annihilation of his assassins, leaving no other logical explanation for their failure. The prince realizes he's facing a far bigger problem, an unknown artifact now in the hands of a rival kingdom. He understands the grave implications, knowing that a single powerful artifact can shift the entire balance of power between nations. Prince Betrayal sweats, realizing this powerful artifact slipped completely through his intelligence network. He stomps his foot in fury, lamenting the timing of this new threat to his already precarious position. The prince's true fear is revealed. He cannot allow his half-brother to marry the princess and gain the power of this artifact. The assassin leader interjects, offering a crucial piece of information about the artifact's mysterious origins. She explains their intelligence points to a young man selling items from a humble stall as the source. A flashback confirms the princess received the item directly from Gail, a seemingly insignificant merchant. The scene shifts to a tavern in the capital, where a man loudly questions how Gail could have reached the remote town of Farmage. His companions urgently try to silence him, aware that such information is dangerous if overheard. He dismisses their concerns, sharing a rumor from the local coachman about how Gail traveled. The drunken adventurer then calls for a waitress, his loud behavior drawing unwanted attention. A drunken adventurer named Kush loudly demands more ale, earning a slap from his exasperated companion. His group discusses a rumor about a stagecoach to Farmage that was ambushed by a massive horde of orcs. One adventurer claims a single supporter wiped out the entire horde, but Kush scoffs at the unbelievable tale. As his friend insists he listen, the drunken Kush questions how a rearguard could possibly fight off monsters. The story describes a man with an ugly, cursed dagger who single-handedly destroyed the orc army. The hooded adventurer connects the description to their old acquaintance, Gail, leaving Kush stunned. Another companion expresses disbelief, pointing out that even their skilled party would struggle against such a threat. However, the woman in their group reveals she has an eyewitness account of someone matching Gail's description. She confirms Gail was indeed running a stall, shocking a now-sober Kush who demands to know where. She explains he was selling cursed items as interior decor at a market before the royal guard confiscated everything. Kush scoffs at the idea, claiming Gail was just selling defective garbage that nobody wanted. The hooded man counters that Gail was actually doing quite well, even making enough money to stay at a nice inn. Another companion adds that he even had enough for a new set of clothes and a stagecoach ticket. The woman reveals the royal guard is now frantically searching for Gail, but he's vanished without a trace. His former party members realize that with the money he earned, Gail is bound to be planning something big. The hooded man puts the pieces together, preparing to reveal his theory to his impatient companions. He suggests that with the heat on him, Gail has likely left the capital for a change of scenery. They all realize with dawning horror that Gail's optimistic nature means he's probably trying to open his own curse shop. The group sighs in resignation, agreeing that while his creations were junk, he certainly had enough inventory to start a business. The woman confirms their fears, revealing someone matching his description filed a request with the Merchants Guild to open a stall. The informant explains he bent the rules to get information on Gail from the guildmaster. The hooded man muses that with enough money, Gail would undoubtedly try to open his own curse shop somewhere. A now-sober Kush jolts awake in a panic, desperately demanding to know where his drink is. As other patrons complain about the slow service, the party waits impatiently for their order. The group isn't worried about the cost, knowing that Princess Cara is footing the entire bill. A waitress approaches, effortlessly carrying 2 massive barrels of ale for their table. She slams the barrels down with enough force to drench the already miserable Kush. He complains about the rough service, but she curtly reminds him she only brought what he ordered. The waitress, her demeanor shifting, steers the conversation back to finding Gail's current location. As she walks away, her superiors commend her for her excellent undercover work. The assassin leader, Liznette, complains about her undercover waitress job, even though she knows it's for intel gathering. From a hiding spot, she confirms that Gail's former party is just as unpleasant as their reports indicated. Her subordinate notes with surprise that Princess Cara hired the group, and that they mention both Gail and the town of Farmage. Liznette reveals the group is the S-rank party Wolfpack, and that the princess is desperately trying to find someone named Gail Hamilton. Her men are baffled, trying to understand the identity of an artifact creator on the run from an S-rank party. She reveals a shocking twist. Gail used to be a member of that very party, but now he's vanished, proving he's a clever target. Liznette grows frustrated, believing the rumors of his poor design sense are a smokescreen to hide his true identity. Still, she admits that eavesdropping on the rowdy adventurers was worth it, as it gave them a lead on Gail's location. She rallies her agents, ordering them to shadow the Wolfpack and seize Gail as soon as they find him. Elsewhere, another of the prince's agents works begrudgingly, cursing Gail's name as her team is forced to work menial jobs to fund their mission. Deep inside the Smith's Guild, the sounds of crafting echo through the halls. Mora navigates the stone corridors, following the noise to one of the workshops. She finds Gail engrossed in his work, completely unaware of her presence in the doorway. As he takes a break, Gail decides it's time to tell Mora something important. He sincerely thanks her for all her help during the dangerous Doghowl mine quest. Gail admits that having her there was incredibly reassuring, leaving Mora momentarily speechless. His earnest praise sends the powerful mage into a blushing, flustered state. She quickly recovers, boasting that as a top-tier support mage, helping him was only natural. A grateful Gail beams, explaining that her support is making his dream a reality. Just as Mora considers his words, Gail unleashes a massive sneeze, completely ruining the moment. An annoyed Mora scolds Gail for his poor sneezing etiquette, while he wonders if he's the subject of rumors. As Shireena arrives, Mora dismisses his sneezing as a simple reaction to the lingering mine dust. Gail thanks the dwarf for the workshop space, just as she spots one of his newly finished creations. He presents a strange, horn-like device he built to her specifications, worrying its design is too plain. Ignoring his concerns, a gleeful Shireena eagerly takes the massive contraption, demanding to know how it works. She quickly finds a key on its side, turning it to activate the device, which hums with a strange energy. Gail demonstrates its power by firing a beam, revealing it's a weapon that unleashes the cockatrice's petrification curse. After narrowly dodging the blast, a furious Shireena berates him, but he casually notes he could have just dispelled it. The dwarf reminds him of her lesson on economics, explaining the device's true purpose in a region with no quarries. Mora has a flash of insight, realizing the device can create valuable stone from nothing, making it an incredible source of income. Mora uses a crude drawing to explain a hypothetical scenario in a desert, leaving Gail utterly bewildered. She quizzes him on how to build with stone there, listing options like making bricks, digging, or hauling materials. Mora quickly dismisses those ideas, pointing out that making bricks requires scarce water and digging is too labor-intensive. She highlights the impracticality of each option, forcing Gail to see the logistical nightmare of desert construction. With a determined glint in her eye, Mora reveals she has a game-changing solution to this problem. She proposes using the petrification weapon to turn packed sand into solid stone, a concept that stuns both Gail and Shireena. Shireena finally grasps the genius of the plan, as Mora explains they can now create stone bricks on demand. Mora points out that while Gail possesses incredible skills, he completely lacks the vision to use them effectively. She reveals Farmage's chronic stone shortage, and Gail blushes at the unexpected praise for his abilities. Mora throws her arm around a flustered Gail, triumphantly declaring his invention will solve all of the town's resource problems. With a greedy glint in her eye, Shireena explains that if his invention works, he's going to make a fortune. While Mora laments his complete lack of social awareness, Shireena admits that despite his cluelessness, his skills are the real deal. The dwarf guildmaster confesses she never cared for cursed items before, but his work is undeniably impressive. A flustered Gail can't handle the praise, as Shireena clarifies she's only complimenting his cursed items, not him. Shireena asks if he can make another device using the dead chicks, but Gail confirms he already tried and failed to process them. She sighs in disappointment, realizing the chicks' petrification organs weren't developed, and their tail venom isn't curse-based. Gail questions the need for a venom maker, earning a sharp retort from Shireena, who reminds him they're in a farming town. She explains the constant threat of pests and wild animals, and how a good venom would be invaluable for hunting and defense. With a sly grin, Shireena bets he doesn't know how to make poison and offers to teach him her methods. Gail is stunned to learn she can craft poisons, and she casually reveals she used to make poison talismans all the time. Shireena explains that her poison talismans require rare undead materials, like ghoul stomachs or mummy bandages. Since the components are rarely sold, she reveals with a sly grin that she simply hunts the monsters herself to get them. An inspired Mora gets fired up, declaring she'll go fetch the necessary materials from her own guildmaster. Gail's eyes gleam as he makes a generous offer, promising to buy whatever she collects so he can craft with it. He proudly presents his first creation, a rotten perfume bottle made from a ghoul's intestine, horrifying both women. A furious Shireena smacks him with a stack of papers, demanding he stick to her requests instead of making more bizarre items. An undeterred Gail eagerly agrees to get started, while Shireena watches with anticipation. As Gail familiarizes himself with the petrification weapon, Mora decides to join them, offering her assistance. Shireena playfully teases a flustered Mora, questioning why she's still hanging around the workshop. The dwarf mentions hearing they've formed a temporary party, noting her own guildmaster is pleased with their progress on old quests. Mora watches Gail, considering the possibility that they might both find a comfortable life in this town. The scene shifts to Gail's former S-rank party, the Wolfpack, looking unimpressed as they travel. Their caravan rattles along a dusty road with loud laughter echoing from one of the wagons. Inside, the Wolfpack celebrates their new princess-funded gear, with their leader boasting about his 500 gold coin mithril sword. The other members show off their own powerful upgrades, including a new magic book and a wyvern bone blade. Convinced they're now unstoppable, the party's leader scoffs at the idea of ever needing Gail's cursed items again. Outside the wagon, two of their companions are visibly annoyed by the boisterous celebration. The party leader wonders aloud why, as an S-rank party, they haven't been approached by any new support members. They conclude that few can match their skill, forcing them to settle for Gail and Mora, while other travelers whisper about their arrogance. The hooded member of the party simply laughs, seemingly amused by the entire situation. Liznette and her assassins have infiltrated the Wolfpack, posing as their new support members to provide buffs and debuffs. The Wolfpack's leader smugly confirms their role, adding that they're also expected to carry the party's luggage. He mocks their supposed poverty, while a smiling Liznette silently promises to make him pay for his arrogance later. The assassins privately agree to tolerate the humiliation, knowing it's the best way to monitor the Wolfpack and find their target. The party leader rudely orders them around, demanding they prepare for a long journey of feasting and drinking. The Wolfpack celebrates their lavish provisions, all funded by Princess Cara's generous sponsorship. A companion warns the leader about drinking too much on an escort quest, but he ignores the advice. The leader complains that the assassins' grim expressions are spoiling his mood, ordering them to stay out of his sight. As the Wolfpack enjoys their feast, the hungry assassins lament their own dwindling funds and the party's unwillingness to share. Their journey is abruptly interrupted by a sharp whistle, putting Liznette's team on high alert for an ambush. The Wolfpack's leader barks orders, telling adventurers to protect the wagons while mercenaries form a defensive line. A massive cloud of dust and noise erupts from the nearby forest, signaling the approach of a huge force. A terrifying horde of mixed monsters bursts from the trees, charging directly at the caravan. The leader tries to rally his forces, boasting about their increased numbers as a monster slams into a wagon. The caravan is thrown into chaos as the monsters tear through their defenses, overturning wagons and scattering the guards. Amidst the carnage, a scout returns with urgent news, having identified the leader of the monster horde. He reveals their foe is a massive armored behemoth, a creature of immense power. The disguised assassins realize with horror that they're facing an S-rank monster, far from its usual territory. The Wolfpack leader grimly notes the horde is full of B-rank beasts, admitting their chances in a direct fight are slim. While the Wolfpack laughs, completely unfazed, Liznette's subordinate quietly suggests they make a run for it. The Wolfpack's leader laughs maniacally, deciding that now is the time to either run or fight, knowing the assassins need them. A furious Liznette curses their luck, ordering her team to engage the monsters but prepare to flee at a moment's notice. Her subordinate questions why the horde wasn't dealt with sooner, recalling a monster hunt mission issued by the Empire. Another agent reveals the S-rank party assigned to the quest suddenly canceled, leaving Liznette to fume over their incompetence. As her team debates what to do, they realize that as an S-rank party, the Wolfpack should be able to fight the behemoth. With a determined look, Liznette decides she will force the oblivious adventurers to join the battle. She bursts into the wagon, trying to warn the drunken party about the behemoth attack. The party leader drunkenly dismisses her warning as whining, while her own agents hold her back from retaliating. The other party members finally notice that the wagon is stopped and there's a lot of noise outside. One of the adventurers casually peeks out of the wagon, calling for the driver, still oblivious to the danger. The massive behemoth lets out a deafening roar, revealing a cavernous, terrifying maw. Finally grasping the reality of their situation, the once arrogant adventurers scream in pure terror. Liznette connects the dots, realizing this is the very monster that drove the orcs to attack the highway earlier. She grimly explains to the panicked party that they're facing a creature of truly immense power. The behemoth stands as a monument to destruction, its presence both violent and dominating. With a sudden crash, the monster's head bursts through the wagon, sending a stunned adventurer flying. The force of the blow shatters the wagon, launching Liznette and debris into the air. She lands with an annoyed grunt, watching as the so-called elite adventurers are thrown into disarray. The behemoth's armored head slams into the ground, a display of raw, untamed force. Liznette scoffs at their incompetence, chiding the S-rank party for failing to parry such a basic charge. The behemoth unleashes a mighty roar, sending a powerful shockwave across the entire battlefield. The Wolfpack is frozen in fear, while Liznette notes its roar is so powerful it feels like it's cracking the air itself. Even the party's most experienced members are stunned by the monster's impossible combination of immense size and terrifying speed. A furious Liznette reminds the adventurers that this is the very behemoth they were supposed to be hunting in the first place. The party's leader simply laughs, casually dismissing the S-rank threat as if it's a minor inconvenience. With unnerving confidence, the Wolfpack draws their weapons, declaring the behemoth isn't their problem to deal with. Seeing the famous S-rank party step forward, the other adventurers and mercenaries are filled with renewed hope. The crowd begins to chant the Wolfpack's name, their morale soaring as they anticipate a legendary battle. Liznette and her assassins watch in disbelief as the party basks in the cheers, completely misreading the situation. As the behemoth thunders toward them, the crowd eagerly awaits the combined attack of the capital's greatest heroes. Liznette watches with anticipation, eager to witness the legendary power of an S-rank party. But with a single tail swipe, the behemoth effortlessly sends the entire Wolfpack flying. The party's leader lies stunned on the ground as Liznette and the crowd stare in utter disbelief. Her excitement turns to horror as she realizes the so-called heroes are completely outmatched. As the Wolfpack flees in terror, Liznette rallies her own assassins, refusing to be taken down by the chaos. Her subordinate questions their mission as the S-rank party abandons their gear and runs for their lives. Liznette scoffs at the idea of retreating, her resolve hardening as the Wolfpack's leader laughs off his own failure. She proudly declares that her team, the Empire's finest assassins, will handle the situation themselves. With a decisive command, Liznette orders her agents to draw their weapons and charge into the monster horde. The assassins leap into the fray, ordered to defeat the monsters and protect the fleeing party while keeping their identities secret. Liznette declares she'll handle the behemoth, gracefully dispatching a lesser monster with her whips. Her subordinate wishes her luck as she calmly faces the roaring S-rank beast, ready for the fight of her life. She weaves through the forest, attempting to use the dense trees to conceal her approach from the behemoth. Leaping from the shadows, Liznette aims to strike the monster from its blind spot, hoping for a surprise attack. The behemoth's sharp senses detect her instantly, forcing her to realize that stealth is useless against such a powerful foe. Changing tactics, she kicks a poisoned wyvern dagger at the beast, hoping its potent venom can deliver a fatal blow. As she dashes in to follow up, the behemoth casually swats the dagger aside with its massive tail. Undeterred, she slides beneath the monster, preparing to slash its vulnerable throat with her remaining blade. Her blade grinds uselessly against the behemoth's impenetrable hide, failing to even leave a scratch. With a quick change of plans, she redirects her attack and successfully strikes its eye, but is thrown back by the beast's pained reaction. Liznette gloats, confident that her poisoned blade has dealt a fatal blow to the behemoth. Her victory is short-lived as the monster retaliates, and she realizes with horror that it's still moving. To her dismay, the behemoth not only resists her venom but exhales a toxic mist of its own. Cornered and out of options, she resolves to use the last resort given to her by Prince Betrayal. She recalls the prince's sinister words, promising that the cursed item would make her a vessel for its immense power. The story cuts to the royal castle, beginning a new chapter focused on an incurable curse. Inside, Princess Cara is receiving a strict lesson on the finer points of royal tea party etiquette. Her tutor, Duchess Melinda, sharply calls for her attention, but the princess is already exhausted by the lesson. The Duchess demonstrates the correct posture, insisting the princess keep her chin perfectly level. As the Duchess explains the complex social rules, the princess struggles to hide her growing annoyance. The Duchess lectures on the hidden meanings of leg positions, a rule the princess finds utterly pointless. She demonstrates the proper ankle-crossing technique, a subtle gesture of royal decorum. When the tea is served, the princess's simple choice of 2 sugar cubes earns a sharp, disapproving glare. Her cheerful addition of sugar is met with an audible gasp of horror from her tutor. The Duchess declares that 2 sugar cubes are strictly forbidden, leaving the princess to argue for her own taste. Her tutor explains the absurd logic that a divisible number signals a desire to separate, much to the princess's disgust. The lesson moves on to the proper way to hold a teacup, but the princess has clearly zoned out. Overwhelmed by the nonsensical rules, the princess finally breaks down, only to be criticized for her crooked tiara. The Duchess calmly readjusts the tiara, insisting that a princess must maintain her composure at all times. She then reveals the true motivation for this grueling lesson. Her fiancé, Prince Cardis, expects nothing less than perfection. The princess slumps in defeat, the weight of her royal duties crushing her spirit. She laments her fate, trapped between a political marriage and a murderous brother-in-law. Her tutor reminds her that the entire kingdom's peace and prosperity rest on her shoulders. The Duchess insists she remember her high station before speaking so freely. But the princess rejects the notion of a life chosen for her by others. With a defiant smile, she declares her desire to forge her own destiny. Still, she confesses that the pressure of her position feels like a heavy chain. She muses that being born a princess is like living with an inescapable curse. As a bird lands nearby, her thoughts drift to the one person who understands curses: Gail. She wonders if the curse crafter could be the key to breaking the shackles of her royal life. A royal advisor attempts to soothe the princess's troubled mind. He advises her to learn about the Empire, believing knowledge will prevent future bloodshed. A mischievous idea strikes the princess, and she turns to her knight Vivian for an answer. Her knight sighs, exasperated by the princess's sudden macabre interest in the heart of the devil. The princess frames her curiosity as a royal duty, while Vivian downplays the legend as simple oral tradition. Seeing her knight's serious demeanor, the princess presses her for more details. She explains that the terrifying reality of the Demon King's reign was so gruesome, it was eventually diluted into folklore. While the princess is shocked by the revelation, her knight clarifies that the truth remains uncertain. A look of dread crosses her face as she considers the terrifying truth behind such a dark legend. This confirms the heart of the devil is not just a legend, but the most insidious cursed item known to exist. The behemoth recoils, coughing violently as the potent venom from Liznet's blade takes effect. Liznet herself struggles to breathe, realizing the monster's toxic mist is now coursing through her own veins. Caught in the beast's massive tail, she is lifted high into the air, preparing for the end. Her loyal agents can only watch in horror, crying out her name as their leader faces certain doom. In a desperate move, one of her subordinates throws a small, clicking device directly at the monster's face. The device detonates in a blinding flash of light, engulfing the entire battlefield. Both the monster and the assassins are disoriented, their vision completely whited out by the blast. As the behemoth flinches in pain, its grip loosens, dropping the assassin leader to the ground. She is shocked that a simple flash bomb could affect an S-rank monster, but she uses the opening to her advantage. The brief distraction was all she needed to slip on the cursed bracelet, her last resort from the prince. She remembers the prince's parting gift, a bracelet containing a fragment of the Demon King's heart. As the behemoth charges, Liznet braces herself, ready to meet the S-rank monster's attack. Her subordinates watch in horror, knowing the beast's immense speed and sharp horns are unstoppable. Unfazed, Liznet raises a single hand to intercept the charging behemoth. To her team's shock, she catches the monster by its horns, stopping its devastating charge in its tracks. A sinister skeletal aura erupts from her as the cursed bracelet unleashes its power. The dark energy pulses around her, the Demon King's essence now flowing through her veins. Despite her new power, she strains against the beast's immense weight, realizing she can't hold it for long. With a look of grim resolve, she decides to end the battle in one decisive move. She effortlessly lifts the massive behemoth over her head, preparing to finish the fight. With a surge of demonic strength, she hurls the S-rank monster into the ground, shattering the earth on impact. Her subordinates can only stare as the remaining monsters flee from the scene of the behemoth's defeat. A triumphant laugh escapes her as she effortlessly drags the massive beast's body, reveling in her new power. Her overwhelming aura sends the entire monster horde scattering in terror, leaving her the sole victor on the battlefield. Her team remarks that the heart of the devil has made it hard to tell who the real monster is. Liznet admits that despite her power, she couldn't fully defeat the S-rank beast, showing even the curse has limits. The power's backlash hits hard, and she collapses in a fit of violent coughing as her subordinates rush to her side. She clutches her chest in agony, pleading for the Demon King's influence to release its grip on her. Her team realizes the curse is consuming her, but thankfully they came prepared with a last-ditch countermeasure. They initiate a costly, church-produced dispelling ritual, praying it's enough to sever the artifact's hold. The cursed bracelet dissolves into black smoke, but Liznet still clutches her arm in agony as the ritual's light fades. A small demonic creature crawls from her body, a physical remnant of the curse she's desperately trying to expel. Her subordinates rush to her side with a remedy, while one of them slams a container down, trapping the curse's essence. Liznet trembles, realizing that even after the ritual, the elements of the cursed heart are now permanently a part of her. With a grimace, she understands the prince never gave her a way to fully dispel the curse, intending for her to be forever tainted. Surveying the wreckage of the caravan, she declares their mission a victory, as the behemoth is gone and she's feeling better. Her agent reports that while there are survivors, most of the wagons are destroyed, leaving them stranded for the time being. Exhausted, Liznet decides their only option is to wait for a patrol to arrive from either the capital or farm edge. Her loyal team kneels before her, their expressions a mix of relief and concern for their leader's well-being. Liznet commends her subordinates for their hard work, and they express their admiration for her own resilience. Liznet watches the defeated Wolfpack, disgusted by how pathetic the so-called S-rank party truly is. Her team manages to contain the remnant of the curse, sealing away the myth-class power of the Demon King's heart. She reveals that only a fraction of the heart's power was enough to dominate the behemoth, leaving her subordinates in awe. But the power came at a great cost, and she clenches her fist, her hatred for Gail Hamilton now burning brighter than ever. The scene shifts back to the Farmage Smiths Guild, where a strange beam of energy erupts from the workshop. Meanwhile, completely unaware of the chaos he's caused, Gail lets out a massive sneeze. He wonders if he's the subject of rumors while Mora points out the lingering undead dust on his face. Changing the subject, he proudly presents his latest creation, built exactly to Shireena's blueprints. With a flourish, he reveals a massive, skull-shaped streetlight that ignites with a mystic flame. He seems confused by their request, questioning if they're sure they want a simple, skull-shaped flame generator. Shireena explains the mystic flames are self-sustaining, feeding on the smallest traces of life to burn eternally. Mora notes the impracticality of oil lamps, while Shireena points out the high cost of traditional streetlights. The dwarf praises Gail's invention, highlighting its permanent flame, low consumption, and complete lack of fire risk. Mora and Shireena quietly agree that while the lamps are useful, a street lined with skulls might be a bit much for the townsfolk. Undeterred, Shireena proposes replacing all the town's streetlights, and a beaming Gail eagerly accepts the challenge. She then asks about her other requests, and he proudly reveals another completed petrification weapon. He casually mentions that he also threw together a few of the farm tools she asked for. A wide shot reveals he's already built an entire set of massive, ominously named cursed farming equipment. The story shifts to a new chapter as a stunned Shireena prepares to inspect Gail's new business venture. Inside, Gail presents his latest creation to a confused Mora, a strange, disembodied hand. Shireena reveals she's found the perfect location for Gail's new business venture. She explains the building is a former alchemy shop, and an ecstatic Gail realizes his dream is within reach. The dwarf guildmaster reminds him the money she paid for his gear will easily cover the deposit. With a simple cleanup and a new sign, she declares the shop will officially be his. Mora playfully teases a blushing Gail, dubbing him Gail the shopkeeper. Shireena adds that he's still welcome to use the guild's furnaces anytime he wants. The story cuts to the battered caravan, which has been traveling for 10 days since the behemoth attack. The aftermath is clear, as half the wagons destined for Farm Edge were completely destroyed. After being rescued by a highway patrol, the survivors are finally continuing their journey. Meanwhile, the Wolfpack shamelessly takes all the credit, boasting that they single-handedly defeated the monster horde. The Wolfpack members congratulate each other, confident they'll receive a huge reward for their supposed heroics. The woman sarcastically admits she can't recall his specific contributions, much to his annoyance. The two support members angrily insist their backup was essential, questioning how the others could forget their role. They boast about taking the behemoth's eye, tail, and horn as trophies of their victory. The leader proudly credits his mithril sword for taking the monster's eye, dismissing the woman's wyvern dagger. From the back of the wagon, Liznette observes the leader's pristine sword, wondering how he can lie so convincingly. A brief flashback shows the party lying defeated on the ground, a stark contrast to their current bravado. The memory reveals the leader's true reaction, screaming in terror at the sight of the S-rank monster. Back in the present, they examine their loot, the monster's eye, horn, and tail, and note the entire horde has vanished. The leader conveniently claims his memory is hazy from the intense battle, using the evidence to cement his heroic tale. The Wolfpack convinces themselves they were the heroes, having completely rewritten their memories of the battle. Liznette decides against revealing the truth, knowing that as assassins, staying inconspicuous is their top priority. After a long and arduous journey, the battered caravan finally reaches the agricultural town of Farm Edge. The survivors shower the S-rank party with praise, completely unaware of their cowardice during the attack. Liznette's team can only watch in disgust as the lazy frauds bask in the glory that rightfully belongs to them. The Wolfpack immediately starts planning their victory celebration, much to the annoyance of their disguised escorts. Trying to maintain control of the mission, Liznette politely suggests they report to the local guild first. The party leader agrees only to collect his reward, insulting the assassins while Liznette barely contains her rage. Upon entering Farm Edge, the party is immediately unsettled by the town's bizarre, skull-themed streetlights. They walk through the town, unnerved by the rows of ominous, glowing skulls lining the otherwise peaceful streets. The party questions the town's strange skull decor, while their leader suddenly recognizes the familiar, morbid design. The party connects the dots, instantly recognizing the macabre aesthetic as Gail's signature handiwork. A companion scoffs, insisting Gail only makes cursed gear, while another can't believe the town would embrace his bizarre creations. Their leader smirks, concluding Gail must have a shop here, and decides the local guild is their next stop. He mocks Gail's lack of subtlety, grabbing his companions and laughing at how easy it will be to find him. Unaware they're being watched, the party cheerfully agrees to head for the guild, playing right into Liznette's hands. Liznette confirms they've hit pay dirt, noting with interest how little respect the Wolfpack has for their former member. She incorrectly deduces that Gail's former party didn't trust him, forcing him to use them as a front for his activities. Arriving at the local guild, the party looks down on the quiet, rustic building as they step inside. The witch-hatted member smugly mocks the local adventurers, earning stares as she struts into the guild hall. The Wolfpack leader slams his hand on the counter, confronting the local guild's receptionist. He arrogantly demands to see the guildmaster, only for the elf to reveal with a grin that she's in charge. The leader snaps his fingers, rudely ordering his disguised support members to haul in their loot. Liznette and her subordinate unceremoniously dump the massive horn and tail of the behemoth onto the floor. The guildmaster stares at the monster parts with a deadpan expression as the Wolfpack leader demands her assessment. She plays dumb, forcing the party leader to impatiently explain what the items are. After she identifies the behemoth parts, the party boasts about their S-rank kill and the value of the materials. The guildmaster calmly informs them that without the head or the heart, their claim of victory is invalid. The party is left speechless as she correctly deduces that the behemoth actually escaped. A furious and embarrassed party leader storms away, vowing to have the last laugh as the guildmaster smirks. As the assassins retreat, the guildmaster sarcastically advises them to actually finish the hunt next time. But before they can leave, she spins around, demanding to know which organization they truly belong to. With a smug grin, she reveals she knows they were the ones who wounded the behemoth, not the Wolfpack. Liznette realizes the guildmaster is dangerously perceptive and orders a hasty retreat as she's mocked for her poor cover story. Watching them go, the guildmaster muses that an S-rank party has arrived from the capital, just as Gail once did. A sly smile crosses her face as she realizes that things in Farm Edge are finally starting to get interesting. The scene shifts to Gail and Mora, walking down a quiet road toward his new shop on the edge of town. After planting a new sign, Gail asks for Shireena's opinion, and she admits its creepy design suits him perfectly. The new curiosity shop Gail's Cursed Goods is officially open, and he thanks Shireena for all her help. He promises to keep working with the Smiths Guild, and she happily agrees, calling him one of her best clients. With his shop ready for its grand opening tomorrow, Gail suggests they celebrate tonight, an idea Shireena eagerly supports. He happily agrees to invite Mora, just as she conveniently appears on the road behind them. Mora arrives to find the shop already finished, feeling a little left out that she was too late to help. Gail explains the building was a former alchemist's shop, which is why it was already perfectly set up for him. Changing the subject, Mora asks if he's been taking solo quests in crypts, having heard about it from the guild master. He puffs out his chest proudly, confirming that he is, after all, still an adventurer. Gail complains that no one wants to party up with a curse crafter, forcing him to go on quests alone. He clarifies that while he's glad to have the shop, he has no intention of giving up his adventuring career. He explains he needs time to gather materials, but doesn't have the money to hire a shopkeeper just yet. Leaning over the counter, he reveals his plan is to eventually hire someone to run the store while he's away. A nervous Mora tentatively begins to make a suggestion. She offers to watch the shop for him, proposing they could form a party again. She fidgets, reminding him that as two rearguard members, their partnership has been effective so far. Blushing furiously, she confesses that being with him makes her feel invincible. Gail completely misses the emotional weight of her words, stomping his foot in thought. He suddenly panics about a loose bandage on a mummy item, leaving Mora mortified as Shireena smirks at his cluelessness. The three agree to meet for a celebration after sunset, with Gail promising to prepare snacks. Shireena compliments the Curiosity Shop sign, noting it makes the business more approachable than just cursed goods. Gail stands proudly before his new establishment, laughing with genuine happiness. He reflects on his new life in Farm Edge, grateful for his good friends and his very own shop. He reflects on how comforting it is to finally have a place where he truly belongs. His shop is adorned with an undead bell, an item said to comfort the souls of children in nearby crypts. Inside, the shelves are already lined with bizarre items and potions you couldn't find anywhere else. As he prepares for the evening's celebration, the bell on his shop door chimes unexpectedly. Gail turns to greet his first potential customer, explaining that the shop isn't quite open for business yet. He freezes in shock as he recognizes the visitor, Kush, the leader of his former party. With a condescending smirk, Kush greets him with a deeply insulting remark about his profession. The party leader scoffs at the idea of Gail opening a cheerful little curse shop after all the trouble he supposedly caused. Before Gail can respond, another familiar voice calls his name as the shop door is thrown open with a bang. The rest of the Wolfpack saunters in, followed by their hooded companions, leaving Gail stunned by the unwelcome reunion. The witch dismisses the assassins, ordering them to wait outside while Gail questions why his old party has suddenly appeared. Outside, Liznet's team speculates on their leader's new identity and the Wolfpack's sudden expansion. Following orders, the disguised assassins stand guard by the shop's entrance, waiting for their next move. With the door shut, the witch turns to Gail with a smug grin, confident they can now speak privately. A nervous Gail confronts them, reminding the Wolfpack that they were the ones who kicked him out in the first place. Kush ignores his questions, cutting straight to the point and laying out their demands. The party leader loudly orders Gail to remove all the curses from their gear immediately, leaving him speechless. Hearing the shouting from inside, one of Liznet's agents questions if they should really be waiting out here. Her subordinate confirms their target is Gail Hamilton, and Liznet decides they should approach him directly. Liznet holds back, realizing this confrontation is the perfect opportunity to observe the legendary artifact crafter's true abilities. Gail realizes they're talking about the curse-based buffs he once placed on their old equipment. He internally questions their accusations, knowing he never placed any negative effects on the rest of the party. He clenches his fist, remembering how he absorbed all the curse's side effects onto himself to protect them. With a flash of anger, he recalls that he removed all those enchantments from their gear long ago. A new chapter begins as Gail confronts his former party, still confused by their demands to remove the curses. The party leader furiously accuses him of cursing them for revenge, but Gail vehemently denies it. As a threat, the leader grabs one of Gail's prized items from the shelf. He smashes the valuable creation on the floor, leaving Gail to watch in horror as it shatters. The other members join in, vowing to destroy everything in the shop as payback. The Wolfpack begins to systematically wreck the store, destroying Gail's inventory as he kneels on the floor. The witch prepares to unleash a spell, prompting Gail to panic about her using attack magic indoors. Losing his patience, the party leader grabs Gail's collar, demanding he remove the curses. Gail tries to clarify that their stats simply return to normal. He didn't actively debuff them. The leader takes this as an insult, twisting Gail's words to mean he's calling them weak. A tense silence falls as the furious party leader glares at a defiant Gail. Deciding he's had enough, Kush shoves a companion aside and draws his massive sword. He menacingly suggests that the easiest way to remove a curse is to eliminate its caster. The other party members eagerly agree, seeing it as the perfect solution to their problem. The leader raises his weapon, ranting about their journey to this town, which only serves to anger Gail further. Instead of using the blade, Kush brutally strikes Gail with the pommel of his sword. The force of the blow sends Gail reeling, a sharp reminder of his former party's cruelty. But as a curse crafter, his reflexes kick in, and he instinctively retaliates before he's even aware of his own actions. Kush stumbles backward and falls, learning that a large sword is far less effective than a fist in close quarters. Pushing himself up, Gail declares he won't let them destroy the shop his new friends helped him build. He's tolerated their abuse for long enough, but insulting the town that accepted him is the final straw. Filled with a cold rage, Gail challenges his former leader to settle their score outside once and for all. Outside, Liznet's team watches, planning to use the fight to gauge Gail's true power before making their move. Liznet smirks, pleased that her plan to pit them against each other is unfolding exactly as she intended. She muses that the so-called Wolfpack will make the perfect scapegoats for whatever comes next. Picking himself up, a furious Kush accepts the challenge, ready to put Gail in his place. The Wolfpack's witch smirks, confident Gail will regret getting carried away. Their leader explains they recently came into a small fortune, leaving Gail confused. He reveals they spent it all on the most expensive buff items the capital sells, holding up a potion. The party members chug the elixirs, mocking Gail for making them waste such decadent items on him. Kush lets out a satisfied sigh, feeling the potion's effects take hold. A brilliant flash of light erupts from the party as their stats skyrocket, forcing Gail to shield his eyes. Gail instantly recognizes the potent aroma and visible stat boost of high-grade power enhancers. His eyes widen in disbelief as he realizes the true nature of the items they've used. He identifies the shattered vial as a rare, one-use ability enhancer from the Adventurers Guild. Kush gloats that these are the kind of quality goods a low-level jobber like Gail would never see in his life. The witch taunts Gail, claiming their new power simply returns them to their former glory, while he insists he never cursed them. With their powers boosted, the three frontline members charge forward, ready to overwhelm their former companion. Gail watches them spread out, instantly recognizing the familiar and dangerous battle formation. The witch smugly explains that since Gail was always in the rear, he never truly witnessed their signature tactic. They surround him in their infamous pack front formation, designed to corner and crush a single opponent. As an ex-member, Gail grits his teeth knowing exactly how tricky this pincer-style attack is to counter. The strategy forces a target to focus on one attacker, leaving them completely vulnerable to another from behind. He tries to focus on Kush as the main threat, but is immediately distracted by another member's taunt. The female warrior Melissa zips past with a lightning-fast slash, testing his reflexes. She mocks his divided attention, forcing him to realize he's already falling for their coordinated assault. Melissa gloats, realizing their boosted stats have made them far faster than Gail anticipated. Despite their speed, Gail remains confident, believing his knowledge of their tactics will let him counter their moves. He's immediately forced to sprint as another party member, Luke, launches a volley of projectiles at him. Gail tumbles across the ground, narrowly avoiding the barrage of attacks. The rogue, Luke, grins menacingly, ready to unleash another wave of his deadly throwing weapons. Gail recognizes that Luke's ranged attacks are just as dangerous as the combined assault of the other two. He notes the knives are laced with a potent, unfamiliar poison, making even a minor scratch a fatal risk. As Gail dodges the knives, Kush swings his heavy sword, forcing him to duck low to avoid the powerful blow. Kush is visibly surprised as Gail grits his teeth, still able to predict and react to their relentless assault. Meanwhile, the witch begins casting a powerful fire spell, forcing Gail to worry about protecting the town from collateral damage. Kush unleashes a furious barrage of slashes, but a determined Gail manages to evade every single strike. The witch directs her teammates to close in, attempting to surround Gail and cut off all his escape routes. Just as they think they have him cornered, Gail pulls out two large scrolls, revealing he has a plan of his own. He unfurls the massive scrolls with a flourish, instantly trapping the entire Wolfpack within a circle of cursed runes. Gail smirks, revealing he wasn't just dodging their attacks, but deliberately luring them into the perfect position. He reasons that if they can use items to boost their stats, he can use his own to drag them right back down. With a snap of his fingers, he prepares to administer an antidote to their power-up potions, Curse Crafter style. The runes on the scroll dissolve into a black miasma as he decides to give them a taste of their own medicine. A colossal, bell-shaped cursed artifact materializes from the ground, trapping the panicked party in a vortex of dark energy. He explains this is a powerful, one-use item that activates only after he has designated his targets. He explains the item traps anyone nearby, afflicting them with a powerful, weakening curse. The artifact was forged from the ashes of a man who was wrongfully imprisoned for his entire life. This imbues the item with a lifelong grudge, dooming anyone who foolishly enters its range. The story then cuts away, showing Gail on a solo mission exploring a desolate, ruined village. Inside one of the crumbling buildings, he discovers a grotesque undead spirit embedded within a wall. He senses a fearsome curse radiating from the spirit, but notes that it's completely unable to move. Looking closer at the tormented creature, Gail realizes there must be a tragic story behind its existence. He reaches out a hand, offering to listen to the trapped spirit's tale and grant it peace. Standing before a glowing magic circle, Gail casts a powerful dispelling spell to free the tormented soul. As the curse dissolves, the creature's monstrous form melts away, revealing the peaceful face of an old man. The spirit reveals that Gail is the first person who ever sought him out just to listen. Gail understands the profound loneliness of the spirit, who was trapped and ignored for ages. The old man's soul weeps, admitting that his isolation began long before his unfortunate end. The flashback ends, showing Gail standing alone after bringing peace to the tormented soul. He reveals his counter-strategy, a cursed item that will slowly drain all the power they just gained. Kush dismisses the threat, confidently telling his party that Gail's curse is nothing to fear. With his trap set, Gail suddenly bolts, leaving the confused Wolfpack shouting in his wake. He internally confirms his plan is working. having successfully debuffed his former party. His next move is to lead the fight away from the town, refusing to let any innocents get hurt. The enraged Wolfpack, now feeling the curse's effects, gives chase, determined to catch him. Gail knows his familiarity with the local terrain gives him a crucial advantage over his pursuers. He runs toward the desolate outskirts of town, planning to use one of the abandoned locations for his trap. A quick glance confirms all 4 members of the Wolfpack have taken the bait and are following close behind. He shouts back, egging them on and ensuring they keep chasing him right where he wants them. The chase suddenly grinds to a halt as the party reaches an isolated building on the edge of town. The curse finally kicks in, and the Wolfpack's members suddenly feel exhausted and weighed down. They can't understand why the capital's most expensive S-rank potions are failing them so miserably. Their leader seethes, frustrated that Gail's curse is far more effective than he ever anticipated. In a moment of desperation, he turns to his new hooded companion for a dispelling item. He's met with empty space, realizing their mysterious new allies have completely disappeared. The party leader roars in frustration, realizing his mysterious new allies have abandoned him. From the shadows, Liznet's team watches Gail lead the Wolfpack away, their plan unfolding perfectly. A flashback reveals the moment Gail unleashed his cursed bell just before making his escape. Liznet admits with a grimace that Gail Hamilton's reputation as a curse crafter is well-deserved. She's stunned by the sheer number of powerful artifacts he seems to carry with him so casually. Her subordinate asks for their next move, pointing out that the fight is attracting unwanted attention. Liznet knows it's only a matter of time before the town guard arrives to investigate the chaos. Indeed, the sound of approaching footsteps confirms several guards are already on their way. She clicks her tongue in annoyance, frustrated that her plan to observe in secret is about to be ruined. Deciding to take control, she orders her team to handle the onlookers while she prepares to intervene. A vision of a tormented figure ensnared by dark tendrils flashes through Liznet's mind. She clutches her chest, feeling a familiar, terrifying pulse from the fragment of the Demon King's heart. Forgetting all secrecy, she screams at her team to take cover, realizing the situation has escalated beyond their control. One of her subordinates suddenly collapses in agony, making them wonder if the seal on the cursed artifact has broken. Liznet knows the seal they placed on the heart's fragment was too strong to be broken so easily. Yet she senses a power radiating nearby that is just as potent as the Demon King's own essence. She gasps, realizing with horror what is truly happening as her team prepares to act. The fragment isn't broken. It's resonating with Gail's cursed bell, recognizing it as an item of equivalent power. The curse remnant within her reacts violently to the resonance, and she orders her team back as it erupts from her body. She struggles to contain the dark energy, watching in horror as the curse begins to consume her own hand. Liznet's team is caught in the curse's area of effect, feeling their stats plummet from even the slightest contact. Her subordinate immediately suspects this is the handiwork of their target, Gail Hamilton. Liznet writhes in agony, realizing the curse is far more complex than a simple debuff. She staggers, identifying a cocktail of debilitating effects, including slow and anti-armor. The curse's influence spreads, inflicting even more ailments like terror and sheep's clothing on her team. Her subordinate expresses disbelief, admitting that even with their extensive assassin training, this combination of curses is unheard of. Liznet orders a full retreat, warning that direct contact with the dark energy will seal their fate just like the Wolfpack's. One of her agents fails to escape in time and is ensnared by the swirling vortex of dark energy. While the assassins are distracted, Gail vanishes into the distance, leaving them to realize they've lost their target. Her subordinate is left completely baffled, wondering why Gail would flee when he clearly holds the upper hand. Liznet can't comprehend Gail's strategy, but orders her team to give chase immediately. Her subordinates agree he must be their target, questioning why he'd use such a powerful artifact so early. They observe that he's running away from town, not seeking support from any allies. Liznet smirks, deciding to abandon the Wolfpack and focus on Gail, who is now facing her team 1 against 4. The Wolfpack follows Gail as he leads them toward the ominous ruins of an old hospital on the edge of town. Liznet scoffs at his choice of battlefield, finding it foolish to seek shelter in a place of the dead against them. With their orders clear, the assassins dash off in hot pursuit of their target. Despite their confidence, the entire team is soon winded, struggling to keep up with Gail's relentless pace. They question who this man could be, as even their elite pursuit skills are proving insufficient to close the distance. Her team speculates he must be using enhancement drugs, but Liznet wonders if he's just naturally that fast. Her team realizes they're also suffering from the curse's lingering effects, even without a direct hit. Liznette clenches her fist in frustration, knowing she can't afford to lose an unaffiliated artifact crafter of Gail's caliber. She orders her team to push through the curse's effects, authorizing lethal force to ensure their target doesn't escape. In their desperate pursuit, the elite assassins make a critical error, losing all awareness of their surroundings. Their commotion attracts the attention of a massive, shadowy creature lurking in the nearby forest. The monster is revealed to be the wounded behemoth, which growls, recognizing the scent of its attackers. The scene shifts back to the exhausted Wolfpack, still struggling to move under the weight of Gail's curse. Kush pants in frustration, complaining that their party has been reduced to the speed of a tortoise. Suddenly, the sound of approaching footsteps alerts them to someone else's presence. Mora appears, calmly asking the stunned party if they're responsible for the chaos at Gail's new shop. Kush angrily confronts Mora, demanding to know what she wants. The witch glares, her jealousy fueled by Mora's confident demeanor and appearance. Kush stares in disbelief, recognizing the elegantly dressed Mora holding a bottle of wine. The entire Wolfpack is left speechless, gaping at their former companion's unexpected arrival. Their shock turns to anger as they question why she, a former member, has appeared before them. They recall kicking Gail out, followed by Mora's own departure, connecting the two events. A sudden flawed realization dawns on the party as they stare at their former priestess. The witch declares that finding both Gail and Mora in the same remote town is no mere coincidence. She points accusingly, demanding Mora explain her presence and connection to Gail. The Wolfpack concludes that Gail and Mora must have been plotting against them from the very beginning. The Wolfpack recoils in shock, completely buying into their own deluded conspiracy theory. Mora can only offer a wry smile, finding their absurd accusations utterly hilarious. She sighs, disappointed but not surprised by their distorted logic and self-congratulatory nonsense. Gritting her teeth, Mora demands their attention, ready to dismantle their foolish argument. The witch smugly insults Mora, claiming her intellect allows her to see through any deception. Confidently, the witch declares she has Mora trapped, completely certain of her flawed reasoning. Mora's expression twists into a demonic mask of fury, terrifying the party as she questions how their theory is even possible. As the cowering party demands to know what she is, Mora calmly asks them to listen to her side of the story. She takes a step forward, reminding them that they fired Gail first and only invited her to join afterward. Mora then turns their logic against them, preparing to ask a question that will expose their hypocrisy. With a confident smile, Mora asks what she ever did to deserve their accusations. The party leader stammers, completely flustered as Mora leans in, demanding a coherent answer. She playfully dismisses their theory, questioning how it's even possible for her to have conspired with Gail from the start. Taking a deep breath, she turns her back on the defeated leader, ready to dismantle his entire argument. She calls out their hypocrisy, reminding them how they tracked down an ex-member just to destroy his new shop. A magic circle begins to glow as she places her hand on the ground, preparing to teach them a very simple lesson. She leans in, asking the clueless leader if he remembers the most basic rule of human decency. With a flash of light, she unleashes her power, roaring that they shouldn't do to others what they don't want done to them. The party is sent reeling by a powerful shockwave, forcing the leader to call for their signature battle formation. The leader grits his teeth, admitting they're weakened but confident they can still overwhelm her with their numbers. Mora mockingly questions the leader's pathetic attempt at a slash barrage as he struggles to even lift his sword. Clenching her fist, she declares it's her turn to show them what a real barrage looks like. A faint glow surrounds her as she reveals their slowness allowed her to cast multiple power-enhancing spells on herself. She unleashes a furious flurry of strikes, promising to teach them a lesson they won't forget. The party leader's face is battered and bruised from the relentless one-sided assault. Grabbing him by the collar, Mora vows to repay them in kind for destroying Gail's shop. She leans in, hoping this experience will finally teach them a little empathy. As the witch charges from behind, Mora calmly warns her to keep her eyes on the real threat. Without missing a beat, she pivots and lands a devastating blow on the charging witch. Tossing the leader aside, she observes that Gail's debuffs have clearly taken their toll on the entire party. Mora stands over the fallen witch, announcing the fight is no longer a 1-on-4 affair. With 2 members already down, she confidently declares it's now a 2-on-4 battle. The witch and the rogue defiantly get back up, boasting about their ranged attack advantage. The rogue declares they won't be taken down like their frontline fighters, readying a ranged assault. Mora glares back, her expression showing she's completely unfazed by their long-range strategy. In a bustling tavern, a young crafter sketches out plans for a new cursed item, eager to use his latest materials. His focus is broken when a party member, a woman with short hair, calls out his name Gail. He's completely blindsided by the sudden news that his contract is being terminated. The party's leader officially declares him dismissed from their group, the Wolfpack, leaving Gail stunned. This dismissal clashes with his memories of happily crafting for the team, unaware of a mysterious figure watching him from afar. Snapped back to reality, the leader aggressively demands his full attention, his patience clearly worn thin. Kush the paladin gets right in his face, emphatically shouting that he is fired. One teammate snatches his precious notebook, openly mocking his stunned reaction as others try to suppress their laughter. The entire party surrounds him, their taunts and jeers making it clear this was a group decision. Utterly confused, Gail questions the sudden decision, only for the leader to coldly imply the reasons should be obvious. The paladin mocks Gail's confusion, while the crafter desperately recounts his 3 years of loyal service. The leader brutally dismisses his entire profession, calling his cursed items disposable junk that's no longer needed. Adding insult to injury, the leader reveals Gail is also the lowest-leveled member, a fact that clearly stings. Gail desperately defends his craft, reminding them how his items guaranteed their easy victories on countless quests. He whips out a gnarly eyeball necklace to prove his worth, but his teammates are just grossed out. The leader taps his foot impatiently, smugly declaring that the S-rank Wolfpack has no use for his cursed crap. The final blow lands as they introduce his replacement, a hooded support mage named Mora, who's already mastered buffs and debuffs. The rest of the party immediately fawns over their new recruit, while the leader smirks, rubbing salt in the wound. With a final, cold statement, the leader confirms Gail's worst fear. He is completely and utterly useless to them now. The humiliation is public as onlookers whisper about the dead weight being dropped from a powerful S-rank party. The crafter's mind races, realizing this betrayal was an inevitability he never saw coming. Desperate, he pleads for one more chance, promising he has even more powerful items he's been saving. His plea is met with a wall of stone-cold expressions from his former party members. With a newfound resolve, Gail asks the leader if he's absolutely sure, reminding him of his unwavering support from the very beginning. His heart breaks as he remembers his dream of staying with the Wolfpack forever, despite not being a frontline fighter. The leader twists the knife, sarcastically advising him to quit adventuring and open a curse shop. His teammates eagerly join the roast, suggesting his demented crafts would be perfect for a freak show. With a heavy heart, Gail finally accepts his dismissal as the hooded replacement. Mora observes the scene unfold. With a final, hollow parting word, Gail turns his back on the party, who have already dismissed him from their minds. The full weight of the betrayal hits him. They're keeping his share of the money and all his pricey ingredients, leaving him with absolutely nothing. Peeking from the doorway, Gail sees his former party celebrating and decides it's time to undo his work. He holds a small paper talisman, and with a focused thought, he causes its central seal to crack. A flashback reveals he'd secretly enhanced their gear with items that boosted their base abilities, a fact he'd kept hidden. With a single command, the talisman in his hand dissolves in a flash of light, severing the link to his enchantments. The magical backlash is instantaneous, sending a shockwave through his body and causing him to collapse to his knees. He struggles on the floor, revealing the true nature of his craft. His cursed items require a binding cost from the user. The shocking truth is revealed. Gail personally absorbed all the negative side effects of their gear, from reduced EXP to status ailments. He recovers from the painful recoil, flexing his hand as he reflects on how his sacrifice made them all stronger. Now free from the burden, he feels significantly lighter and smirks, knowing his old party just lost their secret advantage. As a curious stranger approaches, Gail calculates the immense power he just reclaimed, a staggering 20% stat reduction from each of his level 50 teammates. A look at his status screen confirms it. He's now level 48 with every stat massively increased and a whopping 875 status points to spend. That curious stranger, a stern-looking woman, snaps him out of it, while he internally boasts that his stats are now high level even for a support class. The innkeeper curtly tells him to see himself out, forcing a flustered Gail to grab his bag and quickly trot out of the tavern. Finally outside, he stretches his arms wide, soaking in the feeling of being unburdened and powerful. He wanders through the city streets, penniless but with a bag full of his creations, pondering what his future holds. His path takes him through a bustling market, where vendors are loudly advertising their freshly picked goods. The market scene brings back the leader's sarcastic jab, suggesting he give up adventuring to run a stall of his own. He considers their insult, admitting that opening a shop was a secret dream of his, though he's disgusted to follow their advice. He pauses, embracing the reality of his situation. He is now free to pursue his craft and research without any restrictions. A confident smile lights up his face as he pumps his fist, genuinely excited for the new chapter of his life to begin. With renewed purpose, Gail decides to open a stall to fund his new life. Meanwhile, back at the Silver Wolf Inn, his former comrades are completely oblivious. The Wolfpack celebrates their decision over a hearty meal, relieved to be rid of him. They smugly agree that they spoiled him and should have kicked him out much sooner. As the others mock Gail, his replacement Mora stands by silently, observing her new team. The leader reveals he knew Gail was adding good luck charms to their gear, much to his teammates' disgust. Suddenly, intricate magic circles materialize above their table, stunning the entire party. Mora recognizes the spell as a dispel, just as the Wolfpack's equipment begins to glow ominously. The glowing runes shatter into nothingness, the powerful enchantments completely undone. A shadow falls over their celebratory feast, symbolizing the immense power they just unknowingly lost. The party is left bewildered, with members complaining of feeling heavier and their magic weakening. Mora, the new recruit, looks on with dawning horror, a bead of sweat tracing her temple. The others question the powerful dispel, completely clueless about its true purpose. The leader immediately suspects Gail's retaliation, as another teammate regrets not finishing him off. Their new mage can only stare in disbelief, finding the entire situation utterly insane. She ponders why a cleansing spell would have such a negative effect, a phenomenon that defies magical logic. Mora deduces that since the spell affected all four of them, Gail must have simply undone his own enchantments. Despite the party's anger, she intuitively feels that Gail's actions were not meant to be malicious. The paladin scoffs at the idea of Gail being a threat, as his teammate eagerly agrees they can just beat him up. Mora desperately tries to explain that it wasn't an attack, but the leader cuts her off to assert his dominance. The leader coldly warns Mora that his word is law, and she must quickly learn her place in the Wolfpack. The party's mage vows to destroy Gail next time, while another teammate scoffs at his now weakened magic. The paladin chimes in with a vicious threat to permanently cripple Gail's crafting hands. As the party's cruelty escalates, the leader watches with detached amusement, while Mora stands apart in silent judgment. Mora recalls the moment the dispel hit, confirming the strange sensation she felt wasn't just in her head. Her sharp intellect connects the dots. The dispel wasn't an attack, but a removal that caused all their stats to plummet. She deduces they were all under the effect of a powerful, constant buff this entire time. A teammate tries to snap her out of her deep thought, but Mora can't shake the implications of her discovery. She reasons that a curse crafter applying buffs is unheard of, making Gail a potential prodigy in his field. Mora concludes that the items Gail created were far beyond the scope of any run-of-the-mill crafter. Mora considers the terrifying possibility that Gail's actions were in fact an attack. Her new teammates, however, are busy bickering and goofing off, completely oblivious to her concerns. She observes their petty squabbles and casual cruelty, contrasting it with the immense power they've just lost. The mage questions if the Wolfpack even deserves its S-rank title now that their secret weapon is gone. A horrifying realization dawns on her. Their entire strength might have come from the very man they just threw away. Meanwhile, as Gail walks away, a mysterious figure with crystalline hair watches him from the shadows. The leader tries to shut down Mora's worries, arrogantly declaring that Gail is no longer their problem. He smirks, revealing they have a big event tomorrow that will prove their strength. The rest of the party cheers, eager to tackle an S-rank quest and show the guild their true power. With manic glee, the Wolfpack celebrates their first S-rank quest, unaware they're marching towards their own doom. The leader declares their first S-rank quest is to hunt a behemoth, a disaster-class monster that leaves Mora stunned by their recklessness. With unearned confidence, the Wolfpack clashes their mugs together in a toast to their own glory. Mora stares into her cup, a sense of dread dawning on her as she reflects on this pivotal moment. She realizes they were completely oblivious to Gail's true capabilities and their own inflated sense of strength. Their celebration ends, the empty mugs symbolizing the hollow victory they've just claimed. Meanwhile, Gail's new unburdened life begins with him chasing a mischievous bird that stole one of his necklaces. He finds his way to the Merchants Guild, presenting his business plan to its peculiar, pumpkin-headed leader. With a bright and determined smile, Gail confirms his intention to finally open his own stall. The guild master leads him to the registration desk as Gail dreams of a prime spot in the capital's central square. Reality hits hard when the guild master reveals that coveted spot will cost him a staggering 4 gold coins a day. His entire life savings jingles in his palm, a paltry 3 silver coins. Seeing his broke state, the guild master points him toward the cheaper stalls leading up to the square. Resigned to his budget, he makes his way to the less glamorous but still crowded side streets. He sets up shop at a rickety, crumbling stall that's seen far better days. The guildmaster kindly provides a used starter kit, and Gail gratefully accepts, deciding it's more than enough to begin. He sorts through his creations, deciding to sell his cursed extras and other strange goods as unique interior decor. The crafter is immediately stumped by a new challenge: how to price his unique and bizarre inventory. He decides to simply price his items to cover the material costs, hoping to at least break even. The guildmaster returns, unimpressed by the messy display, and gives Gail a corrective slap on the head. With a flurry of expert movements, the guildmaster shows him exactly how to arrange a compelling and professional-looking stall. The crafter is amazed by the transformation, his humble stall now looking like a proper shop. The guildmaster offers a final piece of advice: a good display is the key to making money. The simple act of kindness nearly brings him to tears, a stark contrast to the abuse he endured from the Wolfpack. With a heavy heart, he picks up the grotesque eyeball necklace, knowing he must sell even his favorite pieces to survive. He carefully hangs the unsettling trinket on a display hook, adding it to his strange collection of wares. A wave of nervous energy hits him, but he steels his resolve, ready to finally open for business. He watches the townsfolk pass by, plagued by doubts about whether they'll accept his unusual craft. Determined to succeed, he slaps his cheeks, psyching himself up for the challenge ahead. He takes a deep breath, gathering his courage to hawk his wares to the bustling crowd. With a booming voice, he calls out to the crowd, advertising a unique selection of debuff items and gear for any adventurer. His sales pitch is immediately challenged by a woman who thinks a debuffing mage is a better investment. Gail expertly explains the key advantage: his items can be used by anyone and don't drain any magic power. His confident sales pitch begins to draw a small crowd, their expressions showing genuine interest. A new customer marvels at the low price of a venom talisman as Gail reveals he only charges for his labor. He eagerly presents his wider inventory of debuff items and status ailment trinkets to the intrigued man. Convinced by the low price, the customer decides to make a purchase, but something else catches his eye. Gail details the sword's properties. It lowers agility but shreds monster armor and boosts every other stat by 10%. The customer's eyes fixate on the strange runes etched into the blade, prompting him to ask for clarification. Gail's casual mention of the sword being cursed sends the customer reeling, causing him to drop the entire barrel of weapons. Ignoring the benefits, the customer demands confirmation about the curse, which Gail calmly provides. The customer scratches his head, baffled by the idea of anyone willingly buying a cursed weapon. Thinking on his feet, Gail pivots and pitches the cursed sword as a unique piece of wall decor. The man inspects the blade, admitting that while creepy, its unique design is strangely appealing. Convinced, the customer buys the sword as a good luck charm, sealing the deal with a flick of a coin. As a bonus, Gail throws in 3 free dispel talismans, much to the customer's delight. Gail beams, realizing his new business model is a success. Be honest about the curses and provide the solution. He recalls selling a powerful cursed necklace to someone who simply appreciated its tacky aesthetic. Another customer bought cursed boots with a huge agility boost, intending to give them to her subordinate. He waves goodbye to a satisfied buyer, then nervously wonders if 5 dispel talismans were enough for a yearly curse. His next sale was a cursed crossbow with a sure-shot effect, purchased for a high-stakes hunting competition. A customer asks about an item, and Gail cheekily begins to tell a tale of a legendary hero. He recounts the story of a berserker who famously favored powerful cursed armor. Gail reflects on his successful strategy of being transparent about the curses while providing free dispel talismans. Word of his unique business model spreads, drawing a massive, chattering crowd to his stall. The line for his cheap, cursed equipment with free dispels stretches down the street, a testament to his newfound popularity. In no time at all, his entire inventory is completely sold out, leaving his stall bare. Gail happily lifts his now empty bag, thrilled that he sold every last piece of his craft. He remembers the diverse customers he met, including one who saw his cursed items as stylishly death metal. Just as he's about to leave, a loud commotion from down the street makes him turn around in confusion. A desperate group of new customers rushes his stall, but Gail can only tell them he's completely sold out. The disappointed crowd laments missing out, while Gail scrambles to escape his own stall. The desperate customers beg him to curse their gear, promising to return with their equipment. Overwhelmed, Gail makes a swift escape, leaping across the city rooftops. Elsewhere, a group of adventurers unwind at a local tavern after a long day. One of them playfully challenges his friend, slipping on a cursed ring he bought from Gail's stall. The ring activates with a flash of light, materializing a status screen that leaves his friend speechless. The man's companion is stunned by the results, while the ring's new owner looks on with cool satisfaction. The status screen confirms the unbelievable. The cursed ring boosted all his stats by a staggering 50%. Other patrons are in disbelief, wondering how a single accessory could possess such immense power. An old adventurer scoffs at the curse, vowing to keep the powerful item forever as others cheer in agreement. In the tavern, adventurers discuss the high cost of the church's official curse-dispelling services. One man gets the bright idea to resell the free talismans, but his friend quickly shuts him down, fearing the church's wrath. They recall the church's exorbitant prices, a stark contrast to the free solutions Gail was offering. The patrons marvel at the mysterious crafter, realizing his unique skills will make him the most sought-after man in the city. One of the men racks his brain, a flicker of recognition telling him he's seen the crafter somewhere before. He glances down at the powerful ring on his finger, the feeling of familiarity growing stronger. But the gossiping adventurers are completely unaware of the full story behind the legendary crafter. They could never guess the immense personal sacrifice he made, shouldering the curses of his entire party for years. Nor could they imagine that the man responsible for an S-rank party's success was just cast aside like trash. From this day forward, Gail becomes a local legend, while he happily counts his earnings, ready for his new life. But just a few hours earlier, the Wolfpack's fate was already being sealed. They marched into the forest for their S-rank quest, brimming with unearned confidence. Their grand hunt for a behemoth began with a devastating explosion that tore through the trees. The mighty paladin Kush was instantly floored, his teammates collapsing beside him in a heap. The party stared in utter disbelief, completely baffled by their sudden and pathetic weakness. Their leader struggled to even lift his sword, his S-rank pride crumbling with every passing second. From the shadows emerged their target, a disaster-class behemoth, unimpressed by their posturing. The leader roared in frustration, unable to comprehend why the monster wouldn't yield to his attacks. Meanwhile, Gail sits peacefully in his new room, diligently working on his next masterpiece. The leader's arrogant dismissal of Gail's final warning now echoes in the face of his own destruction. A flashback reveals the leader's misplaced confidence, assuming Mora could easily adapt to their S-rank rhythm. He heaps pressure on the new recruit, who can only offer a strained smile as the others laugh. The leader spots a target, smugly declaring it a perfect opportunity for a quick warm-up. A lone ogre stands in their path, an enemy the Wolfpack believes they can dispatch with ease. Their assault begins, but the party is shocked as their attacks prove laughably ineffective against the simple beast. The female warrior complains about her poor control just before the ogre sends her tumbling to the ground. With a frustrated click of his tongue, the leader watches as another teammate is violently slammed into a tree. He desperately yells at the party's other mage, demanding to know why his spell is taking so long. The mage struggles to cast, his spell circle sputtering as he pleads for just another moment. His grand incantation results in a tiny, pathetic flame, leaving the paladin aghast at their newfound weakness. The leader seethes as Mora pulls the paladin to safety, narrowly avoiding the ogre's crushing blow. He furiously demands Mora start buffing them, while she checks on the fallen paladin. Mora shouts back in frustration, insisting she's already buffing all of them. She reveals she's been casting buffs this entire time, as faint magic circles glow beneath each struggling party member. With her magic nearly depleted, Mora prepares to unleash one final desperate spell. She channels all her remaining power, causing her and the paladin's magic circles to flare with intense light. Mora announces she's doubled their stats, and the leader grins, certain this will be enough to win. The newly empowered paladin charges forward, swinging his sword at the taunting ogre. With a determined glare, the paladin puts every ounce of his boosted strength into the attack. The ogre effortlessly stops the full-force, doubly buffed sword with just 2 fingers, leaving the paladin utterly stunned. The ogre casually tosses the paladin aside, utterly bored by his doubly buffed attack. The monster sends the paladin crashing to the ground, with Mora barely managing to pull him away. The leader collapses, furiously blaming Mora and calling her a completely worthless support mage. Mora glares back, reminding him he was the one who told her to save her buffs for the behemoth. Fed up, she declares she'll use a debuff scroll that Gail left for her. The leader grabs her in protest, appalled she would resort to using Gail's cursed crap. She insists that his so-called junk is their only hope of survival at this point. A flashback shows Mora reading a letter from Gail, who left her notes and items to help her support the team. Mora confronts the leader, asking if the party's old strategy involved using cursed debuffs on their foes. He shoves her to the ground, contemptuously confirming Gail was responsible for their previous tactics. The leader furiously concludes that the magic circles weren't a dispel, but Gail actively cursing them. His teammates eagerly agree, convinced they're now afflicted by a curse as Mora scoffs at their flawed logic. Utterly defeated by a single ogre, the party decides to retreat, heaping blame on their former crafter. The leader's pride flares, insisting an S-rank party like them can't possibly turn back from a well-traveled road. A teammate calms him down, suggesting they should retreat to deal with Gail's curse and return at full strength. They agree on a strategic retreat, noting the ogre has completely lost interest in their pathetic display. With a sudden burst of enthusiasm, the leader flips a mental switch and eagerly declares it's time to go back. He orders a stunned Mora to cast a speed spell, eager to flee the scene as quickly as possible. Mora questions their hasty retreat, reminding the so-called S-rank party of their prestigious title. The leader brushes off her concern, then patronizingly asks if she's hurt, leaving her utterly baffled by his hypocrisy. The party blames Mora for not fighting, ordering the support mage to be their rear guard. With a casual wave, they abandon her to face the ogre alone, ignoring her protests. The so-called S-rank party officially flees, leaving their new recruit behind with the monster. Left alone, Mora trembles as the ogre seems to offer a strange form of pity for her situation. Refusing to be a victim, she furiously throws one of Gail's debuff scrolls at the monster. The talisman explodes in a massive cloud of smoke, enveloping the entire area. Emerging from the smoke, Mora is filled with rage, vowing to make the Wolfpack pay for their betrayal. She takes off at an incredible speed, leaving her cowardly new party in the dust. Far ahead, the exhausted leader struggles to catch his breath, the retreat taking a heavy toll. The rest of the Wolfpack collapses under a tree, complaining of sickness and lost equipment after their narrow escape. The paladin seethes over their defeat, while his teammate immediately shifts the blame onto Mora. Leaning against a tree, the other members admit something is wrong, as they're far too exhausted from a simple retreat. The female warrior doubles down on blaming Mora, finding any excuse to make her the scapegoat for their failure. Their bickering devolves into petty squabbling, completely ignoring the gravity of their situation. The leader, however, correctly notes that their movements lacked power even before Mora's buffs, hinting at the true cause. Instead of problem-solving, the party's mage and paladin start threatening each other, their egos clashing. As the leader continues to pin everything on Gail, Mora finally appears behind them, having dealt with the ogre. The paladin sarcastically greets the exhausted Mora, mocking her for taking so long to escape. He's cut short as Mora casually tosses something heavy past his head, demanding his attention. He turns to see what she threw, the severed head of the very same ogre they all fled from. The Wolfpack is left speechless, their arrogance shattered by the sight of the ogre's severed head. Gail happily strolls through the market, reflecting on his incredibly successful first day of business. He thinks to himself that running a stall is surprisingly fun, though he wishes he had more non-adventurer customers. He recalls how the regular townsfolk were intrigued by his wares but ultimately hesitant to buy. His main business came from adventurers who were desperate to get their hands on his cursed gear and free dispel talismans. His thoughts are interrupted by the chime of a shop bell, drawing his attention to a nearby storefront. Inside, he's greeted by the familiar pumpkin-headed guildmaster, who casually asks how his sales went. Gail sheepishly confirms his success, revealing he's already thinking about moving to a better stall. The guildmaster's interest is piqued as Gail points to a specific area, ready to invest his new earnings. His eyes are set on a prime location in the city's affluent district, a far cry from his rickety first stall. He sets his sights on the city's affluent noble quarter, a place for high-end clientele. The guildmaster offers him a prime spot just 10 yards away, a perfect entry point to the luxury market. Gail theorizes that wealthy nobles prioritize cutting-edge fashion and aesthetics over simple utility. He realizes this new market might see his cursed items as unique home decorations. The crafter grins, imagining a future where he's hired to design the interiors of grand castles. He also recalls an intimidating bloodshot-eyed adventurer, confirming that moving to a safer area is a smart choice. Shaking off the memory of the customer's unnerving stare, Gail pushes the thought aside to focus on his goals. He stands proudly before his new stall, ready to conquer another day of business with explosive enthusiasm. Unbeknownst to him, the mysterious woman with crystalline hair watches him intently from a nearby alley. Elsewhere, a scuffed-up Mora looks on with irritation as she's berated for her tardiness. The Wolfpack patronizingly tells Mora they hope she learned her lesson, completely ignoring her feat. Mora looks utterly baffled by their dismissive attitude, while the paladin glares at the ogre's head. Suddenly, the shrunken head explodes back to its full size as Gale's item wears off, revealing the ogre was never truly defeated. The leader immediately panics, abandoning Mora as the rear guard and ordering her to deal with the revived monster alone. The full-sized ogre stomps towards them, sending the cowardly party scrambling back in fear. In a desperate attempt to escape, the party members try to shove each other forward as a sacrifice. The Wolfpack flees in terror, leaving behind a confused ogre who seems to have no interest in them anyway. 4 agonizing days pass before the party finally makes it back to the guild. A heavy cloud of gloom hangs over the Wolfpack as they sit in silence, utterly defeated. Back at the tavern, their stench fills the room as they complain about getting lost and desperately needing a bath. The innkeeper points out Mora's party, but she coldly states they deserve whatever is coming to them. The party's leader rudely shouts for the innkeeper, demanding attention from across the room. He slams his fist on the table as his teammates complain about the poor service and their own foul smell. The innkeeper calmly places a single glass of water on their table, informing them it's not complimentary. The paladin furiously questions her attitude, demanding to know if she realizes who they are. She bluntly calls them a bunch of whiny freeloaders, leaving the entitled party utterly stunned. She then informs them their payment for the room expired yesterday, and they are to leave immediately. The paladin tries to use their S-rank status as leverage, but the innkeeper simply holds out her hand for payment. His teammates urge him to pay, but they notice his panicked expression as he fumbles with his empty coin purse. It's revealed their money was spent on replacing gear and buying new trinkets, leaving them completely broke. A breakdown reveals their funds were spent on replacing the mage's gear and the paladin's shattered gauntlets. The leader's custom longsword was also chipped beyond repair during their humiliating fight with the ogre. He looks to his team for a solution, but the reality is clear. The Wolfpack is completely broke. The innkeeper relentlessly badgers them for payment, demanding 5 silver coins for their stay. The female warrior, Melissa, stares thirstily at the single glass of water on their table. Ignoring her teammates, Melissa snatches the water meant for the whole party and chugs it all herself. The party then turns on Mora, shocked that she hasn't contributed any money to their shared fund. Mora coldly clarifies that her money is her own, while the party tries to convince her they'll split future S-rank rewards. The leader patronizingly dismisses her concern, stating that rule only applies after a quest is successfully completed. Melissa grabs a stunned Mora, declaring that what's hers belongs to the party, and what's the party's is also the party's. With a greedy grin, Melissa snatches Mora's coin purse, declaring it now belongs to the party. The paladin is stunned by the amount of money inside, whispering a taunt to Mora, who remains silent. The party walks off with her money, callously reminding her that she's just a support mage. Before he can finish his taunt, the paladin is rocked by a sudden powerful blow to the face. Mora unleashes her fury, sending the much larger paladin flying backward with a single punch. As the paladin stumbles from the impact, his teammates can only stare in wide-eyed disbelief. Enraged, Melissa grabs a stool to attack, but clumsily crashes into the paladin instead. She smashes the stool in frustration, only to realize she's hit nothing but Mora's discarded cloak. Melissa turns in confusion, finding a furious Mora has instantly reappeared right beside her. Mora effortlessly restrains Melissa, who cries out as the leader condescendingly tells her to calm down. With her patience finally gone, Mora unleashes her fury, calling the Wolfpack a bunch of wannabes. The party's mage and Melissa immediately threaten her, warning her to watch her mouth. The two lunge forward to attack, but Mora calmly places her hand on the floor, activating a spell. In an instant, Mora effortlessly neutralizes her attackers, leaving them sprawled on the tavern floor. She strikes a triumphant pose, casually brushing off the fight as the leader stares in utter disbelief. With the entire Wolfpack defeated, Mora apologizes to the innkeeper, who wryly says she's cleaned up the place. She sits atop her former teammates and cheerfully announces to the innkeeper that she is officially quitting the party. Meanwhile, at Gail's new stall, a wealthy noblewoman inspects his wares, intrigued by their unique designs. Gail proudly explains the details of a basilisk-themed lantern, which the woman finds quite unusual but appealing. He then cheerfully reveals the lantern is cursed, a sales tactic that catches his new customer completely by surprise. The noblewoman reacts with theatrical shock, while her stern attendant steps in to intervene. Gail winces, realizing his blunt honesty might have been a mistake with this new customer base. The attendant grills him for selling cursed items to a noble, but his curiosity is piqued when Gail pitches it as decor. To his surprise, the noblewoman buys the lantern and even tips him generously, leaving Gail to reflect on the strange tastes of the wealthy. He observes that his practical, single-use battle items are being completely ignored in this high-end market. Despite the initial shock from customers, he's had a successful day in stretches, ready to pack up his stall. He mulls over the noble's feedback, realizing they find his work unusual but not necessarily desirable. Just as he's about to leave, an urgent voice calls out, stopping him in his tracks. He turns to find the mysterious woman with crystalline hair, who seems to have been searching for him. Gail sizes her up, noting her simple dress and wondering if she's a runaway noble as she inspects his remaining wares. Gail internally notes how unconventional his items are, while the woman thoughtfully inspects them. To his surprise, the woman's face lights up as she declares her love for his unique and unusual designs. She picks up a ring, admiring its cuteness, which leaves a blushing Gail stunned by the genuine praise. Flattered, Gail switches into salesman mode, eagerly complimenting her excellent taste. Realizing she's likely a disguised noble, he decides to drop the formalities and offer her a special deal. She playfully winks, explaining she left her purse at home and doesn't have much money on her. Overjoyed by the compliment, he agrees to take whatever she can offer, joking about his non-existent regular customers. With a bright smile, she agrees to the purchase and places her payment directly into his hand. His jaw drops as he sees the payment, a single massive gold coin. With a final, cheerful wave, she walks away with her new ring, leaving a stunned Gail calling after her. As the woman departs, Gail shudders, recalling a hooded figure's strange comment, but he's too busy blushing and waving goodbye. A sudden panic hits him as he realizes he forgot to explain the curse and provide the free-to-spell talismans. He collapses in despair, clutching his head as he realizes the mysterious woman has completely vanished. He calms down slightly, remembering the item was a memorial ring with a relatively minor curse. Its curse is simple. The ring can't be removed, but it triples the wearer's defense and grants insta-kill resistance. He reasons that a wealthy woman can simply visit a church for a dispel, but he still vows to apologize and give her talismans later. Elsewhere, the woman walks through a dark alley, unfazed by spectral hands reaching from the walls, as a voice wonders if she lives in the castle. Suddenly, she's pulled through a hidden passage in the brick wall, letting out a cry of surprise. Pinned against the wall, she angrily demands to be let go, questioning her unseen captor. A stern-looking maid appears, confirming to her unseen lady that the woman has been successfully captured. The woman struggles as guards drag her away, the maid ordering them to move quickly. Inside a lavish room, the maid lectures the exhausted woman, reminding her of her station and the trouble she's caused. Now dressed in a gown and surrounded by attendants, the woman is revealed to be Princess Cara. Despite the formal setting, the princess tries to stifle a mischievous laugh, her cheeks puffed out. As Gail walks through the city, a hand suddenly claps him on the shoulder, stopping him in his tracks. A city guard questions him, explaining they're searching for a young stall owner matching his exact description. Thinking fast, Gail uses a disguise item to appear as an old man, fooling the guard who quickly apologizes and leaves. Once the coast is clear, he drops the disguise, panicking about why the capital's military is looking for him. Overwhelmed by the close call, he collapses against a wall, deciding he needs to leave the city immediately. His moment of despair is interrupted by a group of children who witnessed his trick and now eagerly demand an encore. The maid scolds the princess, calling the cursed ring blasphemous, but the princess remains completely unfazed. The princess justifies her trip to the market as a royal duty, much to her attendants' frustration. Her room is now a gallery of Gail's strange creations, showcasing her unique and macabre taste. The princess teases her attendant Vivian for not appreciating the artistic value of her new creepy decorations. Vivian sighs, reminding the princess of her official duties, including an important meeting with foreign envoys. Just as they're about to get ready, the princess pulls out the cursed ring, catching Vivian's attention. Vivian panics, begging her not to wear the strange ring to the formal meeting, but it's already on her finger. The moment the ring is on, a dark aura signifies the curse has taken hold. Meanwhile, blissfully unaware of the royal chaos he's caused, Gail sits down to a well-earned meal. He happily enjoys his simple dinner, savoring the taste of his hard-earned success. From the guild's second floor, Gail reflects on his success, thinking he might have a real talent for going solo. He examines a repaired fork, realizing that simply fixing scrap won't be profitable enough, and he needs better materials. After his meal, he decides to take on a few quests for funds before moving on to a new town. As he returns his tray and heads upstairs, a commotion from the main hall catches his attention. Down below, the disheveled Wolfpack furiously demands financial backing from the guild, citing their S-rank status. The guild receptionist smiles, ready to dismantle their entitled arguments with a dose of reality. She calmly explains that they can't get funding without completing any quests and mentions a client's complaint about their attitude. The party stammers about monster trouble, but the receptionist points out they were defeated by a simple ogre far below their rank. With a knowing smile, she reveals the guild is also aware they carelessly led the ogre all the way back to town. To top it off, she notes that Mora quit in record time and presents them with a bill from their inn, which the guild had to pay. Gail watches from the doorway, noting his former party is in serious trouble and looks awful. The receptionist slams her ledger down, coldly challenging their request for an investment. The paladin erupts, pinning all their failures on Gail, leaving the eavesdropping crafter in disbelief. Melissa complains that their stats are useless because of Gail's supposed curse, making buffs ineffective. The receptionist sighs, having heard enough, as the party members pile on, calling Mora worthless too. She furiously counters, revealing that Mora is actually one of the top 5 support mages in the capital. The Wolfpack is stunned as the receptionist explains she referred a top-tier talent to what she thought was a competent party. Gail's ears twitch in surprise, learning just how skilled Mora was and that she's already quit. The receptionist continues her verbal takedown, unable to understand why they'd blame a crafter with Gail's rare gifts. She wonders if they realize the immense value of his dispel talismans alone, blushing as she recalls his talent. The receptionist coolly informs the desperate leader to repay his debts before asking for another investment. The leader rallies his team to find a simple quest, while his teammates insist on dealing with Gail's curse first. With their pride shattered, the Wolfpack storms out of the guild hall, bickering amongst themselves. Gail overhears their conversation, confused by their talk of a curse since he already removed the ones he placed on their gear. He decides to leave before they can take their anger out on him, but spots city guards rushing past as he exits. The guards gossip about a massive argument between the princess and her attendant Vivian, noting their fights get intense. Gail is stunned to learn the entire capital army is being deployed just to break up the royal squabble. As he walks on, a new idea sparks, and he adjusts his collar with sudden purpose. His eyes land on a nearby tailor shop, and he decides to stop in while he's in the area. The shop bell chimes as he enters, revealing a chipped longsword on a table, the very one his former leader broke. Inside the castle, Princess Cara throws a tantrum while her attendant Vivian and the guards try to calm her down. Vivian has a sudden, horrified realization, understanding that the princess's new ring is cursed. The chaos began the moment the princess slipped on the ring, its curse activating with a jolt that sent the staff into a panic. An elderly attendant pleads with her to take it off, but the princess sheepishly admits the ring is now stuck. With a meeting looming, a desperate Vivian suggests a drastic solution involving a sword, sending the princess into a panic. The princess's terrified screams echo from the castle as the guards are ordered to protect her at all costs. A short while later, a perfectly composed Princess Cara enters the hall to greet the waiting imperial envoys. She cleverly hides the cursed ring under a ribbon, laughing off the envoy's questions by claiming it's a minor injury. With a serene smile, the princess graciously offers her guests tea, while a nervous Vivian watches from the side. The lead envoy accepts, offering to share some fine snacks from their own empire as a large crate is wheeled into the room. The princess's eyes sparkle with delight as the envoy reveals a crate overflowing with what she believes are imperial snacks. But the crate reveals not treats, but a team of armed assassins who leap out, ready for an ambush. Their leader takes aim with a poisoned crossbow, promising a swift end as the royal guards scramble to defend their princess. The bolt is loosed with deadly speed, flying straight towards the stunned princess before anyone can react. As the princess flinches in terror, the assassin's projectiles are miraculously deflected by an invisible shield. The would-be assassins are left baffled, staring in disbelief as the princess emerges completely unharmed. A second volley of attacks meets the same fate, clattering uselessly to the floor and enraging the lead assassin. A dark, spectral barrier now surrounds the princess, revealing the cursed ring's powerful defensive magic. She immediately recalls the cheerful crafter who sold her the ring, realizing he is the source of her salvation. Seizing the opportunity, a furious Vivian commands the royal guards to capture the now vulnerable assassins. Vivian checks on the princess, who remains calm while the captured assassins are dragged away. Elsewhere, Gail and the guildmaster are brought to the castle's star chamber, both stunned by the sudden summons. Inside, the princess asks a bishop and an appraiser to examine the cursed ring she's wearing. The bishop Uriel confirms the curse is simple to remove, but marvels at the advanced craftsmanship. Vivian begins a long-winded technical explanation of the ring's complex curse, leaving the princess baffled. The bishop cuts her off, allowing the royal appraiser, Arazul, to give his professional opinion. Arazul inspects the ring, revealing it triples the wearer's defense and provides resistance to instant death attacks. The princess and Vivian are stunned by this revelation, demanding to know what it all means. The appraiser makes a grand declaration. The ring is as powerful as a cursed holy relic. Overcome with excitement, Arazul geeks out over the item, earning a stern warning from a protective Vivian. The appraiser confirms the insta-kill resistance, a power Vivian recalls only belonging to a legendary church relic. The bishop notes that while one other item has this power, nothing so potent has ever existed in such a small form. He reveals the only comparable artifact is the Empire's greatest treasure, the Heart of the Devil. This legendary item offers a wealth of incredible powers, from stat boosts to reduced casting time. However, its curse is deadly, constantly draining the life force of whoever wields it. Vivian stoically accepts that such powerful effects must always come at a great price. This balance of power and sacrifice is simply the fundamental truth of their world. But the princess realizes her ring has almost no penalty, making it even more valuable than a holy relic. She asks Vivian if she remembers the crafter's appearance, causing her attendant to gasp with sudden realization. Vivian eagerly assumes the princess wants the man punished, but Cara clarifies she wants to thank him personally. The princess declares that, curse or not, the ring saved her life and she wants to meet its creator again. Meanwhile, a cheerful Gail walks through the city, completely unaware of the royal summons. He proudly shows off his new custom-made adventuring outfit, complete with hidden storage and reinforced boots. With his handmade dagger and new gear, he decides it's time to leave the capital and procure the rest of his supplies on the road. He takes a moment to look over the bustling city, breathing in the crisp morning air as the town awakens. A wave of nostalgia hits him, admitting that leaving the capital for good feels unexpectedly strange. His thoughts are interrupted by a commotion in a nearby alley, where he spots a familiar, shivering group. He recognizes his former party, the Wolfpack, huddled together and bickering miserably in the cold. Overhearing their petty squabbles, Gail smirks, feigning a moment of recognition. He quickly dismisses the thought with a laugh, deciding it's impossible that the pathetic group could be his old S-rank party. He grabs a quick bite to eat, blending in with the bustling morning market crowd. He's suddenly jolted as a squad of guards rushes past, shouting orders as they secure the area. He's stunned to see the entire Royal Night Corps mobilizing, a massive show of force in the city streets. His blood runs cold as he reads a wanted poster describing a scruffy black-haired teen selling tacky decor. Nearby, he overhears the guards coordinating their search, confirming the entire capital army is on high alert. Completely oblivious, he dismisses the poster, offended by the suggestion that his creations are tacky. A mounted knight turns, his gaze sweeping over Gail as he complains about the vague description. The knight eyes him suspiciously, commenting on his age as Gail internally fumes over the insult to his gear. However, a woman with the knight dismisses Gail, claiming the crafter they seek would be far less presentable. After being waved off, Gail curses himself for getting sentimental and makes a break for it, ready to flee the capital. Having narrowly escaped the royal guards, Gail makes his way to the city's main gate, ready to leave the capital behind. He surveys the departing stagecoaches, weighing his options for a new town to set up shop. Gail studies a map, considering a nearby trade hub, a military fort, or an old city as his next destination. His strategic planning is cut short when a coachman's cry about a last-minute sale instantly grabs his attention. The destination is Farm Edge, an agricultural town which initially leaves the ambitious crafter feeling underwhelmed, but the thought of fresh food and quality ingredients makes him drool, quickly changing his mind. Convinced by his stomach, he eagerly raises his hand to snag one of the last available seats. To his surprise, a hooded figure raises their hand at the exact same moment, vying for the same spot. The mysterious person turns towards him, and Gail feels a strange sense of familiarity as they both seem to recognize each other. The figure lowers her hood, revealing herself to be Mora, the mage who replaced him in the Wolfpack. A flustered Gail stammers as Mora playfully teases him, asking what he remembers about her. Now sharing a cramped coach, Gail silently fumes, deciding to tolerate her presence for the duration of the trip. As the coach rattles along the open road, a bored Gail lets out a massive yawn. He glances over at Mora, annoyed by how close she's sitting in the confined space. Mora apologizes for the cramped conditions, but Gail remains visibly flustered by their proximity. He surveys the other passengers, internally noting how quickly the strong-willed mage quit his old party. Frustrated that he can't sleep, Gail tries to brush off Mora's questions, telling her he's not angry. He reconsiders the situation, concluding Mora wasn't to blame and that the party leader was likely just infatuated with her. Deciding to be direct, he asks her why she left the party, as Mora looks taken aback by the question. She counters with a question of her own, wondering how he could have possibly tolerated that crappy party for so long. Gail listens in disbelief as Mora rants about the Wolfpack's incompetence, wondering what could have possibly convinced her to join them. Mora explains she's fleeing the capital to avoid the guild's attention, confirming the paladin's identity to a skeptical Gail. She reveals that while the Wolfpack scapegoated him, she recognized he was the only respectable person in the group. He apologizes for his former party's actions, and a flustered Mora tells him to drop the formalities and just use his first name. A quiet understanding settles between them as they continue their journey out of the capital. Gail notices she's traveling light, deducing she left the city in a hurry right after quitting the party. Deciding to make the best of the trip, Gail skillfully prepares a meal with ingredients he has on hand. With a grin, he offers her a freshly made sandwich, jokingly welcoming her to the club of people wronged by the Wolfpack. She hesitantly accepts the kind gesture, her expression softening as she thanks him for the food. As she digs into her meal, Gail extends his generosity to the other passengers on the coach. Mora is impressed by the quality of his food, amazed he made it so quickly on the road. He offers her an expensive bottle of wine, which she teasingly accepts while questioning his motives. As she uncorks the bottle, she casually brings up the topic of his successful market stall. She reveals a rumor about a stall selling artifact-class items, leaving a guilty-looking Gail stunned. The news gets worse as she adds that the princess is searching for the seller, causing Gail to panic. He has a sudden flashback, realizing his mysterious, high-paying customer was the princess herself. Gail tries to play dumb, asking if he looks like someone who could craft artifacts, but Mora isn't convinced. He awkwardly compares artifact crafters to reclusive mountain hermits, which sends Mora into a fit of laughter. She playfully agrees with his ridiculous description, much to his feigned disappointment. The two high-five, finding common ground and a new friendship as they continue their journey. Mora muses that if one of them were a frontliner, they could team up, but laments they're both support classes. Their conversation is cut short as a violent impact sends them flying inside the rattling coach. A panicked Gail looks out the window, identifying their attackers as a horde of orcs. He stumbles from the jolt, awkwardly crashing into Mora, who shoves him away, reminding him of the danger. Mora peers outside, confirming their entire caravan is being overrun by the rampaging monsters. A nearby coachman screams for help, explaining their mercenary guard is down just before he's also taken out. The other passengers descend into chaos, convinced they are all doomed as the attack intensifies. Mora's eyes narrow as she spots a group of orcs breaking off to charge directly at their wagon. With the other passengers frozen in fear, she realizes that she and Gail are the only ones capable of fighting back. She turns to Gail with a determined look, asking if he happens to have a weapon on him. Mora confirms she has her staff and a dagger, accepting that they have no choice but to fight. Gail adds that he's only armed with a short sword and some debuffed talismans, an arsenal Mora finds less than reassuring. Gail panics, questioning how two support-class adventurers could possibly survive this ambush. Mora confidently declares she'd rather fight than wait for the end, assuring him of her skill in support magic. Inspired by her resolve, Gail agrees to take the front line, telling Mora he'll need her to back him up. Mora apologizes for the situation, but Gail insists he can't let her face the danger alone. Standing together at the edge of the wagon, Gail grins, ready to show the orcs what two former S-rank members can do. He plans their attack, deciding to use the element of surprise to take down at least one monster. Before he can act, Mora deploys a powerful defensive barrier, stopping the charging orcs in their tracks. With the barrier holding, she tells him to advance while she prepares his buffs, leaving Gail impressed by her quick thinking. A startled Mora feels a strange energy as Gail unsheathes a bizarre, dark dagger. She stares in disbelief at the weapon, which seems to pulse with an unsettling, inky blackness. A dark aura erupts around Gail, who stands ready for battle with a determined expression. His cloak billows dramatically as he's enveloped in a swirling vortex of shadowy power. Gail calmly lays out their simple yet desperate battle strategy. He'll use his cursed items to immobilize the orcs, giving Mora an opening to strike a fatal blow. She agrees, hoping their fight will be loud enough to attract a nearby patrol before it's too late. With a grim look, Mora accepts that their survival ultimately comes down to pure luck. She nervously asks about his ominous dagger, but he brushes it off and tells her to get ready. Mora quickly casts a powerful buff, warning him that its incredible effect is only temporary. Mora unleashes a powerful buff, her hair whipping around as magical energy surges from the ground. With a powerful heave, Gail hurls one of his cursed scrolls directly into the fray. The scroll soars through the air, landing perfectly in the middle of the unsuspecting orc horde. Gail grins with satisfaction as the scroll unrolls, its intricate runes beginning to glow with dark power. He charges forward, closing the distance as Mora watches from the wagon, ready to support him. The orcs are frozen in terror, their faces contorted in fear as the curse begins to take hold. A terrifying wave of spectral energy and ghostly skulls erupts from the scroll, engulfing the battlefield. Even Mora is stunned, her eyes wide with shock at the sheer intensity of Gail's debuff. She stumbles from the magical backlash as the orcs collapse, completely incapacitated by the powerful curse. Realizing the debuff only affects their enemies, she watches as Gail dashes forward to press their advantage. Mora watches in alarm as Gail dashes forward with impossible speed, yelling that he's taking the orcs with him. He leaps into the fray before her buff is even active, his eyes wide with battle focus as he prepares to strike. A stunned Mora can only watch, speechless at the sight of his reckless charge. With a single fluid motion, Gail's dark dagger cleaves an orc in two, the monster falling without a fight. He pivots and cuts down another beast while Mora rushes to join the battle, her eyes fixed on his deadly dance. Gail turns back with a triumphant grin, praising her buffs, but a flustered Mora insists his power is all his own. She surveys the field, realizing the debuff from his scroll is far more powerful than a simple distraction. Her mind races as she identifies multiple high-level curses at play: terror, paralysis, and armor reduction. Her gaze then falls upon his weapon, understanding that the ominous dagger is also a source of his incredible strength. Mora facepalms in disbelief, realizing he's wielding a legendary blade and multiple enchantments as if they were nothing special. A magical circle erupts beneath Gail as Mora's powerful buff dramatically enhances all of his stats. He turns to Mora with a starstruck expression, thanking her profusely as she tries to stammer out a correction. Feeling invincible, Gail charges ahead, leaving a bewildered Mora to wonder if her buffs were even necessary. Just as quickly, the buff fizzles out and Mora panics, realizing she forgot to properly charge the spell. Unfazed by the power loss, Gail just laughs, declaring that with her on his team, they're practically invincible. He then launches himself back into the fight, a blur of motion as he moves to dispatch the last remaining orc. But his victory is cut short as a new, more formidable group of boar-like monsters emerges from the shadows. Gale's confidence shatters as he realizes the fight is far from over, with the new monster letting out a ferocious roar. Thinking fast, he hurls another cursed trinket, which strikes the new horde and erupts in a wave of dark energy. The new curse takes hold, sowing confusion among the beasts as they begin to turn on one another. Gale easily cuts through the disoriented monsters, mistakenly crediting Mora's buffs for his overwhelming power. Mora deadpans, trying to explain that his slow curse is far more potent than any standard debuff. Her eyes widen in shock as she finally grasps the impossible, artifact-level power he's casually wielding. He stands his ground as a much larger beast, the Horde's leader, emerges to challenge him directly. Without a moment's hesitation, he lunges forward, plunging his dark dagger into the massive creature. The monster's powerful counterattack is met by Mora, who braces herself to absorb the devastating blow. The beast dissolves into a pile of spectral skulls, a testament to the dagger's lethal curse. Mora is left utterly speechless, recognizing the impossibly rare insta-kill effect at play. Even Gail is confused by his own strength, unable to comprehend the true power of the items he created. In the quiet aftermath, they both realize they've survived the impossible, forging a powerful new bond. A blushing Gail celebrates their victory, while a skeptical Mora confirms they somehow survived. He excitedly grabs her for a victory spin, crediting her support magic for their success. Gail cheerfully waves to the other passengers, who cautiously emerge from the safety of their wagon. The grateful travelers swarm their two saviors, showering them with thanks for saving the caravan. Later that night, under a starry sky, Mora decides to have a serious talk with her new companion. She confesses that she was terrified during the fight, admitting it was her first real monster battle. Mora wonders how he could have been in an S-rank party without fighting, since he was a founding member. He clarifies that as a curse crafter, he never engaged in direct combat, leaving Mora stunned. She declares their old leader a fool for letting him go, and a flustered Gail can't help but agree. As she praises his delicious coffee, Mora suggests his tricks are more like omnipotence, leaving him beaming. Mora dismisses the praise, modestly claiming she's not that useful in a real fight. She thanks him for the coffee and heads off to bed, while Gail offers her his bag as a pillow. Around them, the other passengers relax and chat, grateful to have survived the ordeal. Gail smiles, her words about his power echoing in his mind as a new thought sparks. He considers her description of his abilities, pondering the idea of being omnipotent. Gail reflects on the battle, realizing he'd never have won without Mora's powerful support magic. As he sips his coffee, he comes to a new understanding of his own potential. He recalls the intensity of the fight, a stark contrast to the joyful celebration of the passengers. The grateful travelers bow deeply, thanking the duo for saving all of their lives. Surrounded by praise, Mora admits to a smiling Gail that she actually had fun during the battle. Gail lets out a self-satisfied chuckle, clearly pleased with the turn of events. He reflects on the night's events, blushing as he thinks about how kind Mora has been to him. Nearby, a sleeping Mora rests peacefully, using his bag as a pillow for the night. The next morning, the coachman announces their destination is just ahead as the wagon rattles to a halt. Mora wakes up and nudges a still drowsy Gail, letting him know they've arrived. They eagerly step off the coach, with Mora confirming their arrival at the town of Farmage. Full of excitement, the duo dashes towards the town gate, ready for their new adventure. They arrive to find a rustic town built on terraced hillsides, surrounded by sprawling farmland. The view is dominated by sprawling pastures and wide-eyed cows, confirming the town's agricultural focus. Standing on a balcony, they both look out over the endless fields, wondering if they made the right choice. Mora asks about his plans, and Gail reveals he'll trade his orc parts for cash before taking on new quests. As they walk to the guild, Mora decides to find a new party while Gail insists on going solo for a while. She looks worried as they arrive at the local guild, clearly concerned about his solo ambitions. Inside, Mora questions his choice of quest from the board, warning him that he can't possibly handle it alone. Frustrated by her doubt, Gail holds up the quest paper, challenging her to join him if she's so concerned. Mora is taken aback as he slaps the paper down, revealing it's a high-stakes A-rank quest. He questions how two support classes could team up, but Mora confidently claims this is her area of expertise. A cheerful, dark-skinned elf receptionist suddenly appears, welcoming them to the guild. Both Gail and Mora are startled by her sudden arrival, stammering out a greeting. As she leads them away, Gail realizes he never even noticed her, while the receptionist gives him a long, curious look. The receptionist greets them, and Gail cheerfully explains they're new adventurers from the capital, here to try their luck. She enthusiastically welcomes them, revealing that the quiet town has very few adventurers, which is great news for them. Gail's charm seems to work on the smitten receptionist, who blushes while Mora glares with irritation in the background. When asked if they're together, Mora quickly denies it, looking flustered as the receptionist gets a little too friendly with Gail. Recovering her composure, Mora formally introduces herself as a support mage from the capital and offers her services. The receptionist's eyes light up with joy, realizing Mora is a support mage and exclaiming how much they're needed in town. But when she turns to Gail, her excitement fades as he reveals he's a curse crafter, a much less desirable profession. Seeing her disappointment, Gail sheepishly adds that he can fight a bit, but the receptionist's enthusiasm is clearly gone. She admits they rarely get work for curse crafters, leaving Gail's prospects in the new town looking grim. Mora lets out a frustrated sigh at the awkward situation, while a flustered Gail looks on. The receptionist notes with surprise that Gail has chosen a lich hunt, a quest that has been a cold case for some time. She explains the quest is untouched because they lack clerics powerful enough to brave the dangerous crypt. With a sigh, she bluntly questions if a mere curse crafter can survive what would likely be a one-way trip. Gail confidently brushes off her concern, while Mora glares, annoyed by the receptionist's lack of tact. The receptionist warns him that if he gets into trouble, no one is coming to rescue him. Unfazed, Gail confirms he'll start tomorrow, prompting the receptionist to search for something under her desk. She tries to sell him a mountain of supplies, but he coolly asks for just a map as she stamps his A-rank quest. When told he needs the lich's jawbone for proof, Gail casually mentions he has plenty of use for them. The receptionist gets close, pleading for him to be careful while accidentally stepping on his foot. She then introduces herself as Gimli, revealing she's not just the receptionist but the guildmaster of Farmage. Gail and the guildmaster formally conclude their business with a bow, much to his surprise. He then presents a massive, dripping bag of monster parts, leaving the elf guildmaster stunned by the haul. As they leave the guild, Mora teases him for being so casual about tackling a dangerous quest in a new town. She gets close, accusing him of being easily charmed by the guildmaster's attention, but he feigns ignorance. With a sigh, she admits she's joining him, and he correctly deduces that was her plan from the start. A flustered Mora insists she's not worried, but is simply there to save him from his own reckless decisions. He calmly explains that having her along is reassuring, as he's actually nervous about his first solo quest. Mora hides her face in embarrassment while Gail grins, questioning why she isn't more nervous about an undead hunt. He clarifies that to him, the undead are simply bags full of valuable ingredients for his crafting. As night falls, the quiet town of Farmage settles in, unaware of the A-rank quest about to begin. That night, the elf guildmaster sits alone on a rooftop, lost in thought under the starry sky. She reflects on Gail's unusual nature, realizing he's far more than just a simple curse crafter. The next morning, the duo attracts stares from the locals who are unaccustomed to seeing armed adventurers. Gail tries to lighten the mood as they approach a massive, ancient-looking structure, ready to begin their quest. He teases her for being overprepared, but she reveals a bag filled with every anti-undead item imaginable. His casual confidence only makes Mora more nervous as he claims to be an undead specialist. Mora makes him promise they'll retreat if things get dangerous, and he readily agrees to the plan. They reach the end of a long stone corridor, where a bright opening signals their arrival at the main chamber. The passage opens into a vast, ruined amphitheater, leaving Gail impressed while Mora remains on high alert. As they descend, they find the grim remains of a previous victim, confirming the danger that awaits them. Mora panics as Gail casually tosses around skeletal remains, pointing out footprints in the dust. A nervous Mora speculates on the dungeon's age, worried they'll get in trouble for disrespecting the dead. He questions her piety, but she insists anyone would seem devout next to him as they peer into the crypt's depths. He casually points out a nearby skull, explaining it's a dormant undead that will reanimate after sunset. To prove his point, he demonstrates by picking up the skull and chattering its jaw, much to Mora's unnerved silence. With a sudden cry of terror, Mora violently smashes the skull to bits with her staff, startling Gail. He playfully reminds her about respecting the dead, arguing that undead are just monsters, but she remains thoroughly disgusted. He points to the destroyed tomb, trying to reassure her that the upper levels only have weak monsters, but his words offer no comfort. He declares his intent to go deeper for better materials, casually suggesting she can turn back, leaving her momentarily stunned. Handing her a lantern, he cheerfully heads into the darkness alone, eager to find crafting materials as she calls out in protest. Mora fumes, wondering why all former Wolfpack members are so self-centered as he disappears into the darkness. After a moment's hesitation, she calls out for him to wait, resolving to follow him into the crypt. They venture deeper into the tomb, surrounded by dozens of disturbed coffins littering the floor. The creepy atmosphere gets to Mora, who suddenly jumps in fright and collides with a surprised Gail. She clings to him, insisting something real brushed past her, but he casually dismisses her fear. He tries to calm the trembling mage, who buries her face in his shoulder, still clearly shaken. As she clutches his cloak, he spots a bat flying overhead, identifying the source of the disturbance. A flustered Mora pushes him away, claiming she was just getting even while he points out the harmless bat. To further tease her, he picks up a nearby skull and makes its jaw clatter, much to her silent horror. Overcome with fear, she leaps into his arms, leaving the crafter completely stunned by her terrified outburst. Gail struggles to calm the terrified mage, who clings to him as a horde of skeletons clatters towards them. Her fear reaches its breaking point as she tearfully insists she cannot calm down, her composure completely shattered. In a fit of panic, she violently shoves him away, catching the crafter completely off guard. He stumbles backward as she furiously warns him to stay away, her terror now mixed with anger. With a desperate cry, she hurls her lantern and a handful of anti-undead items at the approaching monsters. The items ignite the skeletons, but the undead continue their advance, prompting Mora to shove a confused Gail again. Surrounded by smoldering bone piles, a steaming Gail asks a now apologetic Mora if she's finally calmed down. He then questions why she bothered to come along, given her overwhelming aversion to the undead. With a serious expression, she admits that she believes these kinds of quests are far too dangerous to tackle alone. A touched Gail smiles, thanking her for her concern, even as he insists his skills are perfectly suited for the job. He offers a solution, telling the terrified mage to hold his hand so she won't get lost in the dark. The suggestion leaves them both flustered, blushing as they avoid making eye contact. Without a word, she takes his hand, her fingers interlacing tightly with his. As they walk, she squeezes his hand for reassurance, leaving a surprised Gail to mutter that he was only joking. The story flashes back to the capital just before their departure, where a blacksmith works diligently at his forge. A disheveled Wolfpack approaches the shop, hoping to sell some of their old equipment for cash. But the blacksmith takes one look at the ragged group and slams the door, refusing to serve them. Now homeless and shivering in an alley, the former S-rank party laments their miserable, cold predicament. One member reveals a handful of quest flyers, their only hope of earning some much-needed money. The quests range from low-level goblin hunts to a dangerous A-rank ogre subjugation, a grim outlook for the fallen party. Their leader erupts in anger, his pride refusing to let their S-rank party take on such menial quests. The party's wizard tries to be the voice of reason, urging his bickering teammates to calm down. They reluctantly face reality, admitting they're at their limit and can't handle difficult missions right now. Sifting through the flyers, the leader notes that the highest-paying option is a dangerous A-rank ogre subjugation. The mere thought of fighting powerful ogres sends a visible wave of fear through the demoralized party. He quickly dismisses the quest, feigning confidence while complaining about the lack of S-rank missions. Deciding to settle for a C-rank quest, they consider taking on a horde of orcs since the easier jobs pay almost nothing. The warrior confidently suggests a skeleton hunt is beneath them, while the leader scoffs at the C-rank difficulty. One member despairs over their situation, shocked that they've been reduced to going hungry on the streets. Another adventurer tries to rally the group, agreeing that skeletons are weak and they should just do what they can. The party's mages discuss the plan, confident their frontliners can handle the fight and earn them a steak dinner. In the background, the party's less-than-brave members share a strange, unsettling laugh. They quietly agree to look out for themselves, figuring it's better if the others get hurt first. The fallen S-rank party arrives at the desolate old church grounds, the site of their C-rank quest. Their scout peers over a crumbling wall, confirming a large number of undead are waiting for them. He reports around 20 skeletons, a number the overconfident leader and warrior easily dismiss. The paladin outlines their simple strategy. He and the warrior will lead the charge head-on. He leaps into the graveyard, unleashing a powerful holy spell that illuminates the darkness and stuns the skeletons. On cue, the female warrior dashes forward, her dual blades a whirlwind of destruction as she carves through the undead. The rest of the party follows up, with one member smashing bones and the wizard engulfing skeletons in flames. The paladin daydreams of their inevitable victory, smugly mapping out a flawless battle plan in his head. He assigns the support members to hang back, a strategy the party's wizard reluctantly accepts. With their plan set, the party's two frontliners stand before the graveyard gate, ready to begin the assault. As the gate creaks open, a protective holy barrier over the grounds dissipates, signaling the start of the hunt. Inside, the ground trembles as dozens of skeletal remains begin to clatter and rise from their graves. The two warriors charge forward, taunting the undead for their weakness in the daylight. Laughing maniacally at the thought of their reward, the paladin brings his sword down on the first monster. They spin through the horde in a flashy display, their blades a blur as they carve through the initial wave. But their assault abruptly fails, leaving both warriors disarmed and stunned on the ground, surrounded by the undead. The skeletons then begin to mercilessly pummel the fallen adventurers with their own bony limbs. The party's wizard frantically prepares a fire spell as his teammates warn him the frontliners are about to be overwhelmed. He unleashes his ultimate spell, Inferno, but only manages to summon a pathetic little flicker of flame. The party watches in disbelief as the tiny fireball fizzles out, failing to even reach the skeletons. Their pathetic attempt only serves to anger the skeletons, who now turn their menacing gaze towards the support members. The remaining members abandon their quest and their teammates, fleeing the graveyard in a complete panic. The next day, the disgraced party attempts an orc hunt, with the female warrior leaping into action. The paladin follows up, driving his sword into a monster while shouting insults to mask his fear. His moment of triumph is cut short when his sword gets stuck, leaving him vulnerable as his party yells at him. The orc retaliates, grabbing the female warrior and easily overpowering her as she cries out in alarm. As the monster inspects its captive, the rest of the Wolfpack cruelly mocks their teammate instead of helping. The paladin attempts a sneak attack, but his captive teammate is clearly unimpressed by the futile effort. His blade clangs uselessly against the monster's tough hide, the attack completely ineffective. He offers a sheepish apology as the now furious orc turns its full attention toward him. With a single mighty blow, the beast sends the entire party flying, marking another failed D-rank quest. A few days later, the scene shifts back to the bustling adventurers guild in the capital. The dejected members of the Wolfpack enter the guild, their faces etched with doom and gloom. Overhearing whispers from other adventurers, the party leader openly blames Gail for their string of failures. Two members conspire to find Gail after they recover, convinced he's the key to solving their problems. The warrior suggests a simple goblin hunt, questioning if they can even handle such a low-level quest. The bruised and battered state of the party's frontliners tells a story of repeated, humiliating defeats. The party's support members look utterly broken, their faces a mask of exhaustion and defeat. Back at the guild, the receptionist mocks their latest failure as the party leader collapses in humiliation. The paladin seethes with rage, blaming his loss on unfair circumstances rather than his own incompetence. In a flashback, grateful villagers welcome the Wolfpack, believing the S-rank adventurers are their saviors. The party confidently reassures the villagers, boasting that the goblin hunt will be an easy victory for them. Their confidence proves misplaced as the villagers are immediately overrun, with the party getting trampled in the chaos. The battered Wolfpack can only watch, having been so thoroughly beaten they can't even move to help. The receptionist relays the village's message, bluntly telling the party they won't be paid for their cowardice. Enraged by the insult, the leader grabs the receptionist, demanding she give them a mission they can actually handle. She casually swats him away, sending him crashing to the floor and cementing their fourth humiliating loss in a row. Back in the crypt, Gail surveys the vast, ruined amphitheater, impressed by its scale. He grins, realizing the deeper they go, the more valuable crafting materials he can find. A terrified Mora clings to him, insisting something is nearby while he tries to deny it. He asks her to let go, but she refuses, certain that she can feel an ominous presence. Suddenly, a massive pile of bones erupts from the ground, forming into a new, terrifying shape. A giant, menacing skeleton rises from the rubble, its empty eye sockets fixed on them. Hiding behind him, a panicked Mora asks if it's safe to open her eyes yet. Gail tries to lie, telling her it's fine, while internally thinking it's better she doesn't see the giant monster. Without hesitation, he raises his hand, casting a powerful dispel magic directly at the colossal undead. The giant skeleton crumbles into dust as Mora watches, stunned by his effortless display of power. Gail casually asks a still-shocked Mora if she's sure she wants to open her eyes. She questions how he used a simple dispel spell on the undead, which he nonchalantly confirms was easy. Mora argues that dispelling a curse shouldn't work on the undead, baffled by his impossible feat. He tries to explain, comparing his unique ability to the holy magic priests used to banish evil. A confused Mora asks why his powerful ability isn't more widely used, as he struggles to find the right words. Holding a crumbling skull, he clarifies that what he does isn't the same as banishing the undead. Instead, he reveals that his power allows him to listen to the stories of the departed spirits. The remains of the giant skeleton continue to dissolve into dust, a testament to his strange power. While Mora stares in disbelief, Gail smirks, holding the last remnants of the skull in his hand. As she demands a better explanation, he's already looting the remains, telling her to calm down while he collects his prize. Mora seriously ponders the source of undeath, while Gail casually points to a nearby skeleton as a prime example. He effortlessly handles a ghoul, explaining that such creatures are a common sight in these kinds of crypts. Gail presents a glowing magical seal, noting that the undead don't appreciate being banished, a fact Mora finds obvious. He offers a different perspective, suggesting the undead are just spirits with grudges who are unfairly targeted by holy magic. While collecting ghoul fluids, he compares the situation to a child being scolded without being heard, leaving Mora baffled. The strange question triggers a painful memory for Mora, who recalls her own past ambitions to become an adventurer. In a flashback, a younger Mora is told she can't pursue her dream, despite her protests that other girls do it. The memory intensifies, showing her being harshly dismissed and told to quit her nonsense simply for being a girl. Snapping back to the present, Mora sighs dismissively, brushing off a concerned Gail's question. Gail continues his lecture, explaining that to pacify the undead, one must simply listen to their lingering resentments. He casually dismisses her past trauma as a common struggle, much to Mora's visible annoyance. To prove his point, he confidently approaches a nearby coffin, offering to demonstrate his unique method. The coffin lid bursts open, revealing a menacing skeleton that lurches upright with a terrifying clatter. Mora screams in terror, identifying the creature as a dark skeleton knight and tackling Gail to the floor. She explains how dangerous the knight is up close, clinging to him so tightly he can barely breathe. With Mora refusing to let go, Gail simply lifts her and walks toward the approaching knight, ignoring her panicked cries. He calmly faces the monster, touching its forehead and casting a simple dispel spell. The spell's intricate runes glow brightly as the skeleton begins to crumble into dust before their eyes. In an instant, the formidable dark skeleton knight completely dissolves, leaving nothing but fading motes of light. A translucent human spirit rises from the dust, revealing the knight's soul, now freed from its curse. The grateful spirit of the knight thanks them as it peacefully fades into motes of light. Gail grins, trying to explain his methods, while a flustered Mora insists she has no idea what he just did. She clutches her head in disbelief, realizing he just effortlessly dispatched a B-rank monster. He reveals the knight's spirit was burdened by the regret of dying before saying goodbye to his fiancée. When asked how he knew, Gail explains that crafting cursed gear has taught him to read the clues left by the undead. He confirms that the spirits often just want sympathy, as listening to their stories is enough to satisfy them. Gail adds that his method is perfect for a curse crafter, as it yields better materials than holy purification. He explains that unlike holy magic, his technique preserves the valuable curse remnants in the materials. As they continue through the crypt, Mora gives him an intense, unreadable stare, leaving him confused. She finally asks if he considers the undead easy pickings, and he confirms they're just materials to him. A furious Mora grabs Gail by the collar, demanding he apologize for his disrespectful methods. He casually walks away, arguing that since he's clearing the crypt, his technique is a win-win for everyone. As she clutches her head in frustration, he complains about her shouting and once again offers to hold her hand. Now holding hands, they descend deeper into the darkness, with Gail announcing they've arrived. They enter a vast, pillared hall, the deepest part of the crypt, which is swarming with an army of undead. Mora notes that despite being so far underground, the chamber is unusually well lit. The horde is a terrifying mix of skeleton knights, ghouls, and even powerful dark phantoms. She explains the eerie glow is created by the combined energy of over 50 undead souls gathered together. Mora tries to act tough, insisting she's fine, but Gail can see right through her terrible lie. Completely unfazed by the overwhelming odds, Gail calmly assesses the massive undead army before them. While Mora panics, Gail casually scans the horde, disappointed by the lack of any liches. The undead suddenly part ways, prompting a relieved Mora to suggest they retreat for the day. Her hope shatters as she realizes the undead are making way for a far more powerful entity emerging from the shadows. Realizing the creatures are ignoring them, a terrified Mora shoves Gail behind a pillar, urging him to hide. A menacing robed figure with a horned helmet steps out from a dark passage, its presence chilling the air. Mora identifies the imposing creature as the ruler of the crypt, a being far more dangerous than anything they've faced. She recognizes it as a sorcerer, a disaster-class undead capable of raising an army and destroying the land. Instead of fear, Gail's eyes light up with excitement, declaring this is exactly what he's been searching for. Mora frantically explains that only a high priest can face such a threat, but Gail's confidence doesn't waver. As Gail reveals his crafting specialty, the sorcerer leaps from its perch, crashing down with devastating force. As the sorcerer slams into the ground, Gail yanks a terrified Mora out of the blast radius. He pulls her behind him, shielding her as the sorcerer and its undead army turn their attention toward them. The entire undead horde begins a relentless, synchronized march in their direction. Mora pleads with him to retreat, but he ignores her, readying a small, mysterious item for a counterattack. Just as the sorcerer prepares to strike, Gail raises his own hand, preparing to unleash his secret weapon. A strange, viscous substance erupts from his item, completely engulfing the advancing undead horde. A massive, intricate magical circle fills the chamber, stunning Mora as she recognizes it as a high priest-class spell. Back outside, Gail stretches leisurely while a traumatized Mora vows to never set foot in a crypt again. She reflects in disbelief on how he turned a disaster-class threat into a casual day trip. He casually dismisses the threat, prompting an exasperated Mora to explain the true scale of the monster they just defeated. Mora asks if he often explores crypts, and he explains the sorcerer was likely a former noble. He celebrates his massive haul of materials, giddy with excitement over the cursed gear he can now craft. Mora dryly points out his obvious and intense passion for all things cursed. He proudly displays his new loot, including the sorcerer's sword and necklace, declaring them cool finds. He's appalled she doesn't appreciate his treasures, but she calmly states she can't agree with his taste. She then brings up the stall he used to run, asking him how that business venture went. He fondly remembers a customer who loved his designs, boasting that his gear was praised as unique protective decor. She confidently guarantees that the general public will never share his peculiar aesthetic. With a smirk, Mora reveals she's already received a new party offer, while Gail vows to prove her wrong. Back at the guild, Mora impatiently calls for him to hurry as she finalizes her new party arrangements. As Mora waits at the guild, a rowdy group of adventurers descends the stairs, with Gail trailing behind them. She recognizes them as the infamous S-rank Wolfpack, a party known for their skill but terrible personalities. The scene flashes back to Mora accepting a quest from the Wolfpack, deciding the pay was worth the trouble. The memory then cuts to the moment the party leader coldly dismissed Gail. Both Gail and Mora recall the harsh dismissal with somber expressions. Back in the present, Mora reflects on how Gail has transformed from a timid outcast into a man full of hope. She turns to him with a warm smile, admitting that adventuring with him was surprisingly fun. He playfully teases her about her earlier fear in the crypt, prompting a flustered Mora to deny she was close to tears. With a grin, he apologizes, but sincerely adds that he appreciates her being there, causing her to blush. He gazes over the town, admitting his journey after being kicked out would have been much lonelier and tougher alone. He reflects that even if he had money or found a good place, he would still have been by himself. With a gentle smile, he admits that having someone to laugh with makes all the difference. He turns to Mora, sincerely telling her that he owes his newfound happiness to her. His words catch her completely off guard, leaving her blushing and utterly speechless. Overwhelmed, she bolts away while yelling at him, though she quietly whispers her thanks. A confused Gail watches her go, while she internally despairs over his complete obliviousness. Back at the guild, they stare at a massive pile of reward money as Mora asks how they'll split it. Mora protests, insisting she doesn't deserve a share since she only slowed him down on the quest. She dejectedly adds that her only role was carrying some of his equipment. Gail takes the load, shocked by the immense weight and realizing even a high-level porter would struggle. Gail reveals a cursed bracelet is the source of her incredible strength, boasting of its multiple enchantments. Mora is stunned, realizing he casually created a war-altering artifact just to help him carry his bags. She questions if he's ever seen a normal magic item, trying to grasp his complete lack of context. He admits to studying market trends, but dismisses all conventional magic tools as incredibly lame. She furiously explains that normal items offer only one minor buff, a far cry from his overpowered gear. Mora clarifies that his creations are considered legendary artifacts, a concept that finally seems to register with him. As she seethes over his ignorance, he laughs, realizing his lame designs are actually national treasures. He confidently claims innovation is key, casually mentioning his items are cursed as if it's a minor detail. When he offers to make her a similar toy, she immediately shuts down the dangerous proposition. A stark reminder shows the true danger of cursed gear, which binds to the user and requires immense power to control. She explains that cursed items always come with a steep price, like a crippling weakness or losing control. Mora wonders who could possibly manage such dangerous drawbacks, as Gail is shown alone in his workshop. He reveals his secret. He doesn't remove curses, but instead crafts them with specific controlled effects. The thought of his terrifying power sends a visible shiver down Mora's spine. Gail proudly boasts about his perfect designs, while Mora admits he could be a world-changing craftsman. But she quickly dismisses the thought, sarcastically muttering that he'll never be famous. Mora glances at her cursed bracelet, realizing his morbid aesthetic will forever hide his true genius. Spotting a cart, she suggests a ride, while a heavily laden Gail points out their next destination. The friendly farmer recognizes him, noting his unusual profession as a curse crafter. Mora can't help but giggle, admitting to herself that she finds his strange personality endearing. As she walks away, Mora admits to herself that she wouldn't mind joining his party again. Back at the guild, the elf guildmaster Gimli cheerfully greets them as they enter. She's surprised to see them back so soon, immediately asking if they've given up on the quest. Gail confidently declares the opposite, dumping a massive bag of skeleton parts on her counter for assessment. He then presents the ultimate proof of their success, the unmistakable helmet of a disaster-class sorcerer. Stunned by their haul, the guildmaster explains the quest was for leeches and offers a 30% price boost for the unexpected sorcerer. But Mora is furious, calling out the guild for providing inaccurate intel that nearly got them killed. She fiercely questions the guild's competence, leaving the guildmaster sweating under the pressure. The flustered guildmaster apologizes for their small guild's limitations, negotiating a 20% bonus as a confused Gail looks on. Mora then lectures Gail on the importance of accurate intel, explaining that poor preparation is a fatal mistake for any adventurer. Gail interrupts the tense moment, teasing Mora for being so kind, which she vehemently denies. The guildmaster apologizes for her inexperience, but Gail reassures her that few people ever dare to explore crypts. Dejected, the guildmaster admits it was her fault for trusting a gravedigger's unreliable intel. Gail finds himself flustered, thinking she looks surprisingly cute when she's feeling down. Her mood instantly flips as she offers to patrol the area, then excitedly thanks Gail with a hug for his help. As Mora tries to pry the guildmaster off him, Gail reflects on how he's never been praised so much before. Walking away, Mora bluntly asks Gail if he has a thing for younger-looking girls, leaving him completely stunned. The guildmaster calls down from the stairs, eagerly asking if she can begin assessing their haul. Mora accuses him of being too lenient and even staring at the guildmaster, a claim he furiously denies. He asks why she's suddenly pouting, and she retorts that the elf guildmaster is probably hundreds of years old. A massive quill suddenly crashes into the floor, startling both Gail and Mora with its sheer size. From the stairs, the guildmaster apologizes for her hand slipping, though Gail suspects she was aiming for them. After some debate over a huge pile of gold, they agree to split the reward, with a flustered Mora accepting her share. As they leave for the night, the guildmaster waves, telling Gail he can collect the rest of his payment later. Later, the guildmaster examines the monster parts, musing over Mora's casual comment about her age. A cloaked figure suddenly appears in her office, surprising the guildmaster, who asks for their report. The visitor steps forward, beginning to speak of events in the capital as the guildmaster listens intently. The large, cloaked figure sits on the bed behind the guildmaster, their presence filling the quiet room. After hearing the report, the guildmaster's expression turns serious as she considers the possibility of an assassination attempt. The informant reveals Princess Cara survived an attack, not with a holy relic, but with a piece of cursed gear. The guildmaster finds the unknown cursed artifact fascinating, while her informant suggests the assassins were military. She smirks, speculating that an Imperial strike team is involved in this increasingly complex plot. The informant concludes their report, promising more details later as the information relates to their own mission. After the figure vanishes, leaving only a rolling coin, the guildmaster rises from her desk to contemplate. She stares at the sorcerer's helmet, realizing the attack on Princess Cara points to a serious power play by the Empire. Connecting the mysterious cursed item to Gail, she recalls his A-rank quest and the massive haul he brought in. She remembers that from their first meeting, Gail was hiding a dangerous amount of cursed gear under his cloak. His feat of defeating a sorcerer with just one support mage only deepens the mystery surrounding him. Holding the report, she realizes she's dealing with a curse crafter who treats deadly curses and undead as mere playthings. In the shower, she reveals a secret of her own. She is a dark elf, a cursed being with a singular purpose. She recalls her people, a cursed race bound to a solemn duty in a dark, forgotten hall. Her guildmaster role is a cover to steal a powerful relic from the Empire and free her kind. With political tensions rising, she sees Gail's sudden appearance as the perfect chance to exploit the chaos. A sly smile forms as she speculates that the mysterious cursed item from the capital was his handiwork. Leaning over the sorcerer's helmet, she declares Gail a truly fascinating man, her interest now fully captured. The scene shifts to a quiet church in the capital, where another group is seeking answers. A priest with a covered face calmly informs the visitors that he detects no curses on them. The former members of the Wolfpack stare in utter disbelief, unable to process his words. The priest repeats his diagnosis from the altar, confirming they are completely clean of any malediction. Enraged, the paladin grabs the priest, demanding he remove the curses they believe Gail used to steal their power. The priest explains that while they were once cursed, it's a miracle they survived, and they've been clean ever since Gail left. The disgraced party stumbles into an alley, the priest's devastating words echoing in their minds. They're forced to confront the horrifying reality that their current weakness is their true, pathetic strength. Their leader, Kush, refuses to accept this, furiously blaming the priest for being incompetent. Their mage sinks into despair, admitting he had no idea he was just an average or even below-average spellcaster. Desperate, Kush rallies the group to find Gail, convinced the curse crafter is now a beggar on the streets. But one member has had enough, deciding to abandon the sinking ship and save himself. The remaining members wallow in their misery, having sold their gear just to eat and pay the priest. Enraged by the desertion, Kush violently grabs the rogue, pinning him against a wall. He taunts his former teammate for giving up, but the rogue seems to think leaving was for the best. The rogue interrupts the argument, pointing out something on a nearby notice board to Kush. Confused, Kush turns to see what has suddenly captured his teammate's attention. The rogue rips a flyer from the wall and stumbles back to the group, leaving Kush to examine the torn paper. As the others gather around, the rogue sits on the ground, grinning that their leader was right about finding a solution. The female warrior holds up the flyer, excitedly declaring that their luck is finally about to change. The paper is a wanted poster from the royal government, demanding Gail be brought in dead or alive. The entire party erupts in laughter, mocking the poster's description of Gail's terrible fashion and creepy gear. Their boisterous celebration unnerves nearby citizens as they plot to track down their former teammate for the reward. The greedy party members fantasize about the immense wealth and status they'll receive for turning Gail in. Convinced their connection to Gail will guarantee a huge payout, they decide to head straight for the royal office. In the royal palace, a guard confirms the Wolfpack's identity, but Princess Cara suspects they're just swindlers after a reward. The guard reveals the party claims to have worked with Gail, piquing the princess's interest. Inside, the Wolfpack acts disgracefully, laughing and lounging with their feet on the table in front of the royal guards. They greedily demand more food and mock the palace's expensive decor, rubbing their boots on the carpet. Their leader, Kush, arrogantly complains about the wait, suggesting they should charge the royals a late fee. As the princess and her guard observe, she whispers her doubts about their S-rank status, just as Kush notices them. Kush rudely calls out to the fancy lady, prompting a shocked reaction from the princess. Her personal guard steps in, warning Kush that only royalty can address her so informally, but he remains unimpressed. Princess Cara reveals her royal title, stunning the arrogant adventurer into silence as she introduces herself. The entire party immediately prostrates themselves on the floor as the unimpressed princess looks down from her seat. Princess Cara dismisses his apology, sliding the wanted poster forward to get down to business. With the poster between them, she coldly asks if they truly know the man they're claiming to have worked with. The Wolfpack smirks confidently, assuring the unimpressed princess that they know him all too well. Her personal guard demands they begin by providing a detailed description of the wanted curse crafter. Kush offers a laughably generic description, which the guard immediately points out is completely useless. The female warrior adds a detail about his tacky jacket, which seems to catch the princess's attention. Another member chimes in, mocking Gail's accessories as lame and devoid of any taste. Princess Cara, recalling the item that saved her life, coldly refutes their insults. Her firm denial leaves the entire Wolfpack completely baffled and speechless. Panic erupts as the party scrambles, realizing they've just insulted an item the princess clearly values. Trying to regain favor, Kush reveals Gail's name and his profession as their former curse crafter. As further proof, a party member presents several strange talismans, leaving the princess curious. Her guard confirms the talismans are authentic, and the princess presses them for what they've uncovered. The party explains that Gail ran a stall and was known for giving these talismans away with his wares. The princess pouts, disappointed she didn't get a talisman, while her guard tries to rationalize why. Under pressure from the guard, the rogue nervously admits he actually stole the talismans from Gail's collection. As his party blames him for their misfortune, the princess is clearly offended by the display of morbid, cursed items. In a shocking twist, the princess gleefully snatches the cursed items, her face a mask of pure ecstasy. Regaining her composure, the princess admits they've told some truth, leaving the stunned party to stammer their assurances. Convinced, the princess orders her guard to provide their reward, as the greedy party members' eyes gleam with avarice. The guard questions the princess's fascination with the morbid items, but a flustered Cara quickly dismisses her concern. Princess Cara offers Kush a hefty bag of coins, calling it an advance on their future reward. She leans in, her intense gaze unsettling Kush as she explains her personal need to thank Gail. Overwhelmed, Kush kneels and dramatically swears on his life that his S-rank party will succeed. Leaving the palace, the ecstatic Wolfpack celebrates their newfound fortune and royal patronage. Confident they know Gail's habits after 3 years, the party splits up to search the capital's stalls and guilds. They assign members to check the city's taverns and carriage stations, certain Gail wouldn't have strayed far. As they walk, Kush speculates on the princess's true intentions behind her emphasis on thanking Gail. The other members agree with a sinister grin, eager to deliver their own version of thanks for their recent misfortunes. The Wolfpack laughs, plotting a violent revenge, completely misinterpreting the princess's true intentions. The princess's guard expresses her doubt, questioning if it was wise to trust the Wolfpack so easily. The princess stifles a laugh, admitting she has no real faith in them finding Gail, especially since the palace has already failed. She decides to test the S-rank party's abilities, but orders her guard to keep a close watch on them, not trusting them completely. Looking at the flyer again, she confirms his name is Gail the Curse Crafter, her gaze falling on the cursed ring he gave her. A blush creeps onto her face as she clutches the poster, eager to learn everything she can about her mysterious savior. Meanwhile, in the city of Farmedge, Gail sneezes in his workshop, jokingly wondering if a fan is talking about him. He briefly ponders the thought before shrugging it off and getting back to his work. With a manic grin, he begins polishing a lich's ribcage to enhance its magical resistance and dark power. He then grinds up dark skeleton bone, carefully balancing its offensive boost against the resulting defensive weaknesses. Combining the mixture with a Thunderwisp's core, he creates a new masterpiece from the sorcerer's sword to mark his time in the city. Mora storms into Gail's room, complaining about the constant noise and smell from his workshop. He proudly presents his latest creation, a menacing, cursed greatsword named the Divide. Mora leans out the window, asking if he plans to set up his market stall again. She then announces with a grin that she'll be joining him for the day. Her unexpected decision leaves a surprised Gail staring after her as she leaves. At the market, Gail's enthusiastic sales pitch about fresh undead materials stands in stark contrast to the normal vendors. He tries to hawk his morbid wares to the bustling crowd, who seem more interested in fresh bread and roasted turkey. His offer of cursed gear is politely but firmly rejected by a pair of passing farmers. A nearby butcher successfully tempts the same customers with his delicious-looking meats. Undeterred, Gail offers them a pair of skeleton chopsticks, which only makes the potential customers even more uncomfortable.